Don't worry. So we're gonna
But it's hard. I'd have to make a choice.
She's saying you check the big 3 minutes or and then she'll give you a. I'm thinking actually that was his. Yeah. First public comment is on here.
Good evening, everybody. Let's call a month meeting to order, the planning commission of March 17th. First thing is that we will, people are willing and able to stand and join us with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Last we have roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Webster,
Here.
Commissioner McFadden here, Commissioner Osmond,
Here.
Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Eiley,
Here.
Commissioner Stan,
Here.
and Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Next order is the approval of the agenda of March 17th. Any additions, amendments? Any comment?
Approved.
Mr. Butler
Second.
and Mr. Island. Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Very well. Approval of the minutes of February 17th. This is something that commissioners, there was an addition to our minutes. There was a board committee of the whole that some of us got at the very end of our minutes. That was a mistake. So we don't have to do anything. It was in the copy. Okay, so is there any changes, any amendments to page 1? We do. Page 3. Very good. Mr. Butler, support, and Mr. Oliver, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You know, okay, wonderful. Next thing is public comments. We as the commissioners, request that speakers respect a 3-minute time limit for individual comments and 5 minutes limit for an individual who was speaking in part of a group. Please identify the group that you are speaking for. This is not a question and answer session. It's just an opportunity for you to voice your thoughts to the planning commission. If you would just come forward to the podium and state your name and address, we would appreciate it. So I will open the public comments, and if anybody in row 1 wishes to speak to the commission, please come forward.
Good evening. I'm Elaine Starrett Isley. I'm with the Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance. And I have some comments regarding the pending approval of the Pine Trail condos. By the township's own admission, there are still outstanding items that need to be supplied by North Shores. Plans for dockage are absent. The township planner recommends bringing plans for dockage and boat slips for approval. It seems to be okay with that being at a later date. But the township regulations require dock placement and setbacks to be determined during the condo review. The landscape plans that have been updated would also be compromised without knowledge about where these docks are going to go. Docks are going to be put in there. The state permit will be required, although it has been withdrawn currently. Eagle has indicated that the use of condo common areas for dock construction would be considered a marina. So there is a substantial issue there that this planning commission should be paying attention to as well. It would be great if we could get this sorted out now and not have it keep coming back, oh, let's do this, no, let's do that. Regarding the low impact development standards, the township seems to be of the belief that no additional changes are being proposed with this condo conversion. But this ignores the fact that substantial changes occurred before North Shores even brought this condo conversion for your review. That includes topographical changes, removal of natural features, including trees and some of the dunes. This will likely affect natural flows of pathways. North Shore has added impervious surfaces that prevent stormwater from being able to soak into the ground and that can only run off into the Kalamazoo River. Wildlife corridors haven't been addressed by North Shores or the township, and the tree survey has not been provided. Septic facilities on Dugout Road, these matters are being recommended for consideration at a later time, but there's approvals from the county that are still pending. Whether it's the health department, the road commissioner, the drain commissioner, these have not been signed off on. We need to be accountable. We need to hold North Shores accountable by waiting for the approval of this condo conversion until and if North Shore can provide the information that has been requested by this body and that is required by. I also have comments, which I believe were forwarded, I think we confirmed right before, from Nick Wallace. He lives on Dugout Road and is also a member of the Coastal Alliance. He has also provided photographs. 5 minutes. I was gonna say, he's also provided photographs of what the area looked like before and since North Shores has begun construction. So thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? My name is Vicki Rosenberg and I live at 445 North Maple Street in the township. I'm also a member of the board of the Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance. I'm here to address the same issue that my colleague just addressed, North Shore's request for final approval of its condominium conversion of Pine Trail Camp. I trust each member of the Planning Commission shares my belief that the Pine Trail Camp property is a one-of-a-kind treasure in this community. Treasures that, based on my drives around town, are quickly disappearing with development. In fact, the township appropriately states that the intent of its ordinances include maintaining the physical, and I quote, maintaining the physical, cultural, and aesthetic characteristics of its township's inland waterways, and quote, protecting the public health, safety, and welfare, as well as the irreplaceable natural resources of the township. I urge you to carefully consider and address the concerns the Coastal Alliance raises in the March 13 letter from Rebecca Milliken at Olson and Howe. Specifically, I urge you to hold off on approval until North Shore has submitted its plans for any boat slips and dockage. As Ms. Milton notes in section 7.20.G.6 of your ordinance states that dock placement and setback shall be determined by the Planning Commission during condominium review in a manner consistent with the intent of this subsection. Besides the zoning ordinance mandate that dockage be addressed at the time of site plan review, there are practical reasons to require comprehensive review of the entire project now. For example, North Shore has not submitted a landscape plan depicting, quote, existing understory vegetation, unquote. Approval of the project in reliance on that landscape plan would be undermined if later construction of dock disturbed or required removal of that vegetation. The before and after condition of the waterfront is also relevant in compliance with the riparian buffer requirements of section 11.60, which, among other things, prohibits clear cutting of trees and vegetation, impervious surfaces, and unnatural lawns within the buffer zone. Thank you for your time, and I'm counting on you to uphold our ordinances and protect the rights of all the citizens of the township.
Anybody else in row one?
John Vanderbeek of Saugatuck Township.
How can I get the actual address?
6419 Palmetto Court in Saugatuck Township. Yeah. So I'm just here to share some thoughts, just about, as a naturalist, my thoughts and feelings about a lot of developments that are happening, on the agenda today, but also in the area. I'm kind of comparing and contrasting what we have going on in the entire tri-community area. And there's really like 6, 7 big developments going on right now. The Center Collective and next to the Catholic Church, pretty dense. They've taken out all the native landscaping and they're redoing it all. From my perspective, we like to see the saving of natural landscaping. The Wiley project, for Mosaic, it's very dense. It's tough to see from an environmentalist perspective, just where green space is delegated to just lawns, and not much of it. The 135th and 66th Streets developments from Van Horn and North Shore, there's lots going on there. The Pine Trail Cabins, I actually kind of appreciate the Pine Trail Cabins because they're preserving the original waterfront look and they're not putting in like huge mansions. And from my perspective, I like a small cabin over a large mansion. I don't really appreciate all the sort of tree massacres that have happened there. I'd love to see more native landscaping in the area over there. But again, I'm not really taking a stance on anything right now. I'm just sharing my thoughts with you guys about all the developments in our area. The Enclave is one of them that's on the agenda today. And that brings up an interesting story because I like to see a lot of preservation with developments, and there's 58% preservation on that enclave, which is interesting because I met Johnny a while ago because he wanted my opinion and about that land and what they're doing with it. And it was just after I was having this wonderful learned experience from Nick Wallace of the Saugatuck Dunes Coastal Alliance. After me and the Riverwood Council and the city of Saugatuck and some local activists and ODC helped set up the Saugatuck Wild Nature Preserve, I took Nick on a walk over there and he taught me about prairies. I'm all about forests, like let's protect the forest. And then all this prairie land on 63rd Street, he opened my eyes to the symbiotic relationship of insects and wildflowers and prairie lands. And that's just as important as forest, maybe more because 98% of it's extinct in the United States. I brought this knowledge and information I learned from Nick, and I thank you, Nick, if you're listening over there, to Johnny, and he listened 100%. He has grass and prairie land going all the way up to the sidewalks, all the way up to the building. There's no plans for a lawn. And I said, look, you have to build it into the HOA. So you don't even have bad insecticides that kill butterflies and butterfly moths and pollinators. It looks like they're doing all that, so I can appreciate what's going on there. And I would like to see more of that kind of stuff around here. Thank you.
Row two?
Are you in row 2?
Yes, I'm sorry, row two.
I didn't hear you. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'll use my dear voice.
Please, I'm tapped out in one ear. Hi, I'm Lavinia Onsea. I live at 6295 Hawthorne Court in the township. And I'm here to actually talk mainly about the Wooden Iron LLC development on 134th and 63rd, but I'd also like to make a comment on the Enclave development that John Vanderbeek just spoke about. I strongly oppose the Wooden Iron mineral extraction and waste management, recycling and crushing activities proposed for 134th and 63rd. This use is not compatible with the surrounding area at all. The surrounding area includes light industrial businesses, offices, and valued recreational spaces like the dog park and Saugatuck Wilds. The township invested money into these wild spaces, and no one will visit them if this project is approved and the air is subsequently filled with dust from an industrial road waste crushing operation, noise from the crushing, and big trucks on the roads. This project would negatively impact the character of our community and introduce significant safety and infrastructure risks with heavy truck traffic on rural roads not designed for that volume or weight. Given these concerns and the lack of alignment with the tri-community master plan, I respectfully urge the planning commission to deny this proposal. Meanwhile, the enclave at 6549 Old Allegan is the type of development which fits into our community plan, as well as providing locals with much needed sidewalks to connect Old Allegan to Blue Star. Thank you.
Anybody else in row two?
What she said.
Row three?
Hello again, Joe Novakoski, 3347 Gaslight Lane. In the township as well, I'm here to talk about the enclave. I do appreciate Lene sending me over the drawings and letting me know that she wasn't gonna recommend it for voting tonight just because of the short time to review the drawings, so I have not had a lot of time to review them, just like you guys haven't, of the revised drawings. And the way our law works, I know it's not public comment within the, or not another public hearing, but I just wanna urge you guys to look at, I know there's a letter from the attorney on how this whole table 6.30 is viewed from the township attorney, but I asked you to read it for yourself. Read section 6.40, which directs you to 16.20.B.2. And the parallel plan is supposed to reflect what is by right available to be built right now. And the parallel plan that was submitted is not allowed by right now. 10,000 square foot lots are not allowed. The setbacks are not allowed, and it's 1 acre lots in commercial, 20,000 square foot lots in the R1, and that's what you should be enforcing. It's pretty clear. I think John mentioned the preservation. If you look at the only thing that's being preserved on the site is wetlands, which can't be built. Everything else is cut down and be cleared out. So take a look closely at the drawings. It's deceiving. And then just overall, this sets a precedent. So if you're going to let this table 6.30 be used to set densities for PUDs, it's going to affect the density of every R1, C1, C2, and C3 property in the township. So be careful what you're doing. Also, let's say that you accept that parallel plan, then I would say enforce that table 6.30. Don't let them build 0 feet from the wetlands that we're trying to protect. Don't encroach on the front setbacks 20 feet instead, they have 0 instead of 20 feet. Just be aware of all that. Again, look for more discussion. I'll have more time to review the drawings in the next one. Appreciate that. Just another reminder, what I've said before, that your job as a planning commission is to enforce the zoning, not to try to make projects get through. So I'll just ask you to look at that, and thank you for your consideration.
Anybody else in row three? Okay, we'll go, row four, right place? Row four? Row five? I only have 5 rows.
Last row.
Yes, I do only have 5 rows. All right, oh, you too, come forward.
Good evening, my name is Dale Harrison, I live at 3108 62nd Street. Anybody not able to hear me?
Yeah.
Good, I want to talk about short-term rentals, but now really isn't the time to move forward with that discussion, so I'll try to come back later in the evening. When I first moved to Saugatuck, I lived in Riverside Road, right next to Palm Trail, and it was a beautiful place, a lot of old cottages. Very scenic walking out the Dugout Road, under the Denison property with permission. It's never been like that since the early 70s. I drove through there a few weeks ago. They were digging away at a dune, a lot of trees had been cut. The whole feel of that area has dramatically changed. And now we have a lot of short-term rentals out there. But putting that aside, Saugatuck used to be the place that the planning commission in the Saugatuck Township board said, yeah, come to Saugatuck and enjoy our protective ordinances relating to rural scenic values in our community. That's an idea, but it's not a reality. I'll explore that maybe later tonight or at another meeting, but the point is the scenic value of our community, with the setbacks, the green space, the trees, the approaching the wetland without the proper setbacks. It's all being decimated mostly because of private development. And you can't have rural country scenic values and preservation and have a zoning ordinance that encourages this kind of development. We went through a long ordeal on the sand mining issue on 134th and 63rd at Royal Road. This new project is a different scale. That's across from a beautiful potential park, walkway. I don't see any environmental protection on that side. So I would certainly encourage you to postpone or table that project for another time. I think you know what I'm talking about from 134th and 63rd. I don't know if you folks know this, but how's my time?
30 seconds.
I'd like to get a couple minutes to just briefly touch on the short-term rental.
You can come back, we have that second public comment, then you're welcome to come back then.
Well, then I'll go back to the Pine Trail Camp project. It's way too much for our community. It's going to bring in more short-term rentals, more strangers. They haven't adequately addressed the docking, the moorings, the activities. The green space isn't what it used to be. Somebody's got those street down. A lot of people that care about it, so hopefully we'll be one of those.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak? Pam, right? Go to Zoom. Is there anybody on Zoom who wishes to speak?
One individual, one individual with no hands up.
Please raise your hand if you wish to speak on Zoom.
Speak now. Okay, I will thank you. I will close the public comment at this point. All right, we'll move on to old business. We have 4 items on the agenda. The first is the final condominium plan for the Pine Trail Cabin, parcel 03200403. Applicant is North Shores Pluckabuck LLC, Scott Boscott. At this time, Lene, if you wish to.
Sure, I just have a few comments. Yeah, since our last meeting, we did receive several letters from various property owners. I did create a summary document for you, and I have copies of those as well. And some were provided to you in advance. Since the report went out from us, I did reach out to Scott Jones at the Allegan County Health Department. He did confirm that the septic system is complete and acceptable. He did note that the water supply is being sampled. The water itself is being sampled. It has to be sent out of state because there's no one in the state that can do the water sampling. He did say the results are expected to take approximately 1 month. We did include a condition of approval for the condominium conversion that prior to any certificate of occupancy, we would have to ensure that the county was okay with the water system. We did receive other comments that again are in your file. Since your last meeting, Mr. Boscraft provided us a landscaping plan. It does show the understory landscaping. It shows existing trees and evergreen deciduous on the property. He did include the planting of new white pine trees on the landscape plan, so that's all in your files. We did also received correspondence from Eagle that said that his dock plans have been withdrawn. That's in your file. I have a copy of that. There's a condition in the staff report, if this were to be approved, that if he does pursue any changes to the dock, that would come back to the township, come back to planning commission. His updated site plan includes the location of the septic and replacement system. There's an easement that's been provided for the well. That's outside of the condominium area. He did receive approval from Crinan Newhoff, our township engineer. The legal description is consistent with what is shown on the plans. There's no issue with that. The county road commission, there's no change to the road, so there's no comment from the road commission. That's all existing. So you'll recall that all of this site, these cabins are already in place. He did make changes to the some of the foundation walls and some of the landscaping on the site, and he's here, Scott's here, the applicant's here, and he can speak to those items that remain if you have questions, but otherwise in the packet is a suggested list of conditions for you for tonight.
Thank you, Lenny.
Sure. Thank you for inviting me back. I was here obviously last month on a test run, and I'm back today with your green binders that are appropriate for today. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. I think because I've heard what the two ladies have spoken about in the front row, and they addressed a letter that was referenced by the Coastal Dune Alliance. Unless you would wish something different, it maybe would be wise for me just to go through the letter and address the issues that they brought up, because they seem to have the letter, including the issues that they brought up there, and include issues that Dale brought up, and it included the issues that were in the Wallace letter. And I'd be happy to do that, but I do realize you do have other things on your agenda tonight that I don't want to waste all your time. If you're not interested in that, then I would like to talk about the things that are in your green book, the new things that are in your green book, and address those items. So which would you prefer?
Whatever you feel is the appropriate thing to do. Up to you. You're the,
It's my time, huh?
yeah, your time.
All right, well, let's start with the letter. So you have 3 letters that have been sent in, the attorney prepared letters on behalf of the Coastal Dune Alliance. And big picture, the Dune Alliance has presented 3 letters dated August 14, 2025. Which would be about the time, I guess, of the preliminary request. There's a September 10 of 2025 letter, which would have been the last time I was here. And then there's a more current letter dated March 13, 2026, which would relate to tonight's meeting. Each of these letters in the big picture or the big scheme sets the planning commission to deny North Shore's request to convert these 5 existing cottages to condominium ownership. I think it'd be wise if I just concentrate on the most current one, because it seems like the letters killed some things went away, new things came up. So I'm going to run through that letter. And I didn't read it earlier, so and I did spin out a couple of things that maybe answer some of the questions. So the first page of the letter, the top 3/4 of it basically goes through introductions about who they are and why they're sending the letters. At the bottom of it, it starts with dockage, and it was brought up by these ladies. One of the person in the audience. So in all three of these letters. I think it's probably important that maybe I shared more information about the back of the docks. Because it seems like that's all we talk about. And so North Shore clearly looked at and what would be involved to actually placing docks in the Kalamazoo River. That's no secret. In my application to the Planning Commission dated January 7, I believe, 2026, which was the date of this bill. Yep. And when I presented this, under tab 9, well, it's 9 in my book, for years, letters or numbers. There was an important note on the second to the last tag. It's not letters in your book. And I think yours were letters because I ran out of the folder, so I started using numbers for mine. But in the notes, I just put boat slips, and it said no application is pending with go or the Army Corps to add any additional boat slips. And I had that in this original book dated January, and then at this meeting, which was my test run last month, I think I told you the exact same thing. So that would have been February 17, 2026. So at that meeting, there was a gal, which I don't think is here tonight, Elaine Hiley, I actually met her, so. That'd be you.
That'd be me.
Welcome under your new plate.
Thank you.
So during that meeting, she was communicating with your zoning administrator, and she was challenging the accuracy, number one, of my statement, and number two, of my written statement in the book, that there was no application in front of people in the Army Corps. After, during the meeting, actually, I received information that that was challenged, and I sent an email to Eagle. And I asked the permitting agent that had been previously assigned to a North Shore application related to the cane, if they could clarify. So the following morning, which I think is in everybody's packet, or at least it's in Lene's, because I forwarded it to Lene, there was an email that was shipped out or sent out, and then I forwarded it to Lene. Can I have a copy for everybody? Waiting on copies. Real thoughts on how many people are up here. That was a good guess. So I believe her concern was based on maybe her own search of what she could find on the internet. Now, there's really only two parties that are probably privy to a boat dock application, the party that actually makes it, and the agency that receives it. But I think with this email, with me telling you again tonight, there are no plans currently before Eagle or the Army Corps or boat docks to permit that application that we had talked to had been withdrawn. So when I go back to the letter, which kind of started this, which is somewhere.
Under your tenure.
That's where it went, under the green thing. In the letter, it appears in that paragraph of dockage that they are confirming exactly what I just told you, and now they believe the same is true. Then the attorney prepared the Cold Freedom Alliance goes on page 1, at the bottom of page 1, and it's here to page 2, and they talk about the planner's letter, Lene's letter, and it says, And quote unquote, the planner's letter suggested petition of final approval, for the planning commission to review or approve any proposed votes in the future. And then it goes a little further on the letter on page 3, and it says, supposed to do a letter, Alliance letter continues to identify section 7.2, G.6, the ordinance, and it says ironically, exactly the same thing. Dock placement setback shall be determined by the planning commission. Essentially, what is being proposed by Lene is a condition that already exists in your ordinance. So I think it's really clear up to this point, it appears that the Dune Alliance and their letter so far, Sagatuck Township and quite frankly North Shore all agree that when and if we would decide that if there are boat docks, we would have to come back to the planning commission to get approval. I don't think that's any secret. But before I go really any further, I think we should all clearly understand there are no boat docks on your plans. There are no permits before Eagle, and there are no permits before the Army Corps. But it's unusual to me why we're continually having a conversation about boat docks. So the attorney letter goes a little further down on page 2, and it says we should do it now. What they're referring to with Pierce is we should do the boat docks now. That's what you're saying, correct? But this is not a Q&A, so can't do that. And they have 4 reasons, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit about why we should do that docks and why we should do them now. It says the landscape plan does not account for docks. That's because there's no docks. Number 2, it's unimaginable that North Shore would market these properties without available dockage. And the previous applications show intent. Number 3, North Shore has represented its hopes to complete renovations and presumably market them for sale by mid-year, mere months away. And number 4, North Shore is kicking the can down the road. The number and configuration of allowable docks on this property is not unlimited or unknowable. And there's no good reason for North Shore to continue to avoid bringing this information forward. After reading the 3 things become perfectly clear to me, the Dune Alliance believes this property should have docks, is allowed by right to have docks, and we should do them now. And while I agree that this property should have docks, understandably, it's on the Kalamazoo River. Every private property owner that I'm aware of has a dock, including the ones that flank the property on both sides. But the point about now, I would, however, respectfully disagree. I know that all parties at this point agree that the Planning Commission, Eagle, and the Army Corps have oversight on docks. But I need to probably share a little more background, because in North Shore did exactly what the Dune Alliance actually suggested. We should do docks now, hence the earlier applications. And quite frankly, I had discussions and drawings with Lene to talk about docks, 5 cottages, 5 docks. But North Shore did make an Eagle application that everybody's aware of. But unfortunately, in our first post-application meeting, Derek Harrelson from Eagle made a very valid point. And I think I can quote him saying, he said, who and what the project is intended for and why it is needed is a prerequisite. For a private dock, let alone 5 of them, we would need to have the customer in hand. We would have to identify the size of the boat, the length of the boat, the draft of the boat, the beam of the boat, confirmation from the party that they own the boat or that they were in the process of acquiring the boat. And you know what? It made perfect sense to me. What happens if they have a kayak? What happens if they have a sailboat? What happens if they have a big motorboat? What happens if we build the wrong dock for them? Do we come back and build another dock? You just keep, jabbing holes in the ground until you get it right. So he actually made good sense, hence why we withdrew the application for the docks. And then now, I hope that helps probably everybody here to understand it a little more. But because during the meeting last time, there was questioning the accuracy of my statement, I brought another email with Vanna White here tonight. This is an email from Derek Harrelson. And obviously I sent him an email that had this email come in response that might have been a little bit self-serving. But this email articulates exactly what I just told you. Yeah, actually, I think they said a little better than probably myself, but yeah, at the end of the day, it is the same thing. So I guess in a summary or a conclusion, if North Shore decides it wants to pursue individual private docks on this property, we need to have final site condo approval. We need to finish the renovations on the cottages, and we need to record the condo docks. We need to find a buyer. We need to find a need, and only then we need to apply for a site condo modification at the planning commission and a permit to the Eagle and that Army Corps. Now, hopefully we can do that one time for 5 customers and not 5 individual times, but there's no guarantee that I can give you tonight that it works that way. As I go further down this letter, the attorney prepared Coastal Dune Alliance on page 2 continues onto low impact standards, and it points to 2 areas of concern on the lower section of page 2 and the 3rd page. Number 1, excavation is ongoing nearing the limited common element of the garage structure. And number 2, corrugated sheet pilings have already been installed with corresponding earthwork. This work was addressed and I thought clearly articulated in this application that was sent to you on January 7 of 2006. Or 26, the application for final condo conversion. Under section 14.6 low impact standard, I wrote on 14.6A says preservation of natural areas. The landscape shall be preserved in its natural state insofar as practical by minimizing tree and soil removal, alteration to the natural drainage courses, and the amount of cutting, filling, and grading insofar as practical. Natural features in the site topography shall be incorporated into the proposed site design. That's your ordinance. And then if you look, it's written a little different slant, and it says the heart of this project is and was to protect and save the existing 5 cottages on the property and to maintain the topography of the property as it is. Unfortunately, because of deferred maintenance and choices made by the previous property owners, a significant number of repairs and tree removal, North Shore has removed only the trees that were necessary and that are exempt under section 11.100D, more specifically number 7. Earth moving dash, the property is not located within the critical dunes. North Shore has undertaken work in order to, number 1, remove any buried debris left by the previous owner. Number 2, remove structures built into the hillside by a previous owner. Number 3, move the toe and or the hill back to repair, replace, and reinstall retaining walls necessary to protect and provide adequate space around existing structures. The debris, topsoil, and sand being removed are either being disposed of or repurposed elsewhere on North Shore's property. Now, I thought that would satisfy and explain the task that we're taking or being undertaken in this, just as we see. As it related to excavation and retaining wall replacement. Unfortunately, the new employee of the Dune Alliance wasn't satisfied with what I wrote in there. And she, at the end of January, contacted the Saugatuck Township Building Inspector Leon, Saugatuck Township Planning and Zone Administrator Lene, some Township Manager Daniel Eagle, Mining and Geology Manager Eagle, Geology and Resources Manager, and the Allegan County Health Department and the Soil Erosion Manager. All parties investigated, had site visits, had a couple interviews, and literally at the end of the day, after all of the wasted resources and the time, the conclusion was no conflict, no violations. And again, because I'm a little concerned about the accuracy of things, I've got for everybody an email string that includes all the parties that I mentioned. And all of the, I think it touches the spirit of what I just told you. And it reads from the back forward, so it would be your first correspondence where you started it, and then all of the other people that were picked up along the thing until the front cover, which was the last conversation. The attorney prepared both the Dune Alliance letter, page 4. Then goes on to low impact design standards. And have been completely ignored, especially section 14.60C, wildlife corridors. And quite frankly, North Shore respectfully disagrees. And let me give you a little background on what we believe a wildlife obstacle to corridors would look like as it relates to this project. Typically, I would think they would be a hardened shoreline, a seawall, something that would not allow turtles to get out of the water, deer that swim across to be able to get out. Now, both of the property owners on both sides of the camp have steel walls, including Nick Wallace's mothers and sisters and whatnot's home or cottage. It would be large new buildings, something that would block travel, light, wind, howling, flight, birds, change of existing vegetation, hardening of additional surfaces, paving, concrete, or increased traffic. North Shore, in its developers notes that are included in your green box or your green folder, actually wrote and responded to that, and we wrote NA as not applicable, because North Shore, we don't propose any of these changes. We're not proposing seawalls, building new structures. Again, what was identified earlier in that same chapter was to preserve the existing 5 cabins. Then it goes on and it talks about tree removal and preservation, page 4. Tree removal and soil disturbance appear to be widespread. Quote. North Shore would again refer to the developer's notes of 14.68. The items identified will create some site disturbance. Further, utilities, including water, gas, electric, exploration of the former septic systems, water lines, and the replacement of the retaining walls also creates soil disturbance. North Shore has gone far above and beyond to maintain the existing topo and has included an existing vegetation plan that has the existing vegetation and has put forward a very robust revegetation plan. The letter goes on to tree removal, page 4, that we provided no proof that removal was necessary for insurance reasons. Well, again, North Shore respectfully disagrees that providing insurance verification is a requirement.
Or quite frankly, it's a task to be imposed on the zoning administrator. Especially when considering the township's ordinance, specifically section 11.100D, general tree preservation exemptions, number 7, says any trees that pose a safety hazard whose removal would prevent injury or damage to persons or property is exempt, provided the removal is accomplished through the use of acceptable forestry services or practices. I actually recall I told this commission, I think it was the last meeting, a little bit of a story about our insurance company wouldn't even underwrite these cabins because the canopy that was above them. Which is true. I mentioned I met with the insurance representatives and I reiterated that the threatened structure by the existing tree canopy would make underwriting impossible. I actually sent Coastal Dune Alliance's letter yesterday when I received it onto my insurance agent. Called me in, got some interesting vocabulary. And he did write me an email or a letter today. Because he actually did meet me on site and helped actually mark what trees he thought were important. And here is the letter from our insurance agent. Then page 4 goes on to septic facilities, the bottom of page 4. The attorney prepared, Coastal Dune Alliance says, quote, one septic tank is to be relocated between cabins 1 and 2, and the entire system now relies on a single drain field, quote unquote. And I don't know exactly how to read the breadth of that letter, about whether they were excited about that or they didn't like that, but then the attorney then goes on to say that North Shore should first obtain all required approvals from the Allegan County Health Department. And then they say, who is best suited to weigh in on health and safety of the proposed system? Well, as you recall from our last meeting that we were here, we had a bit of a robust conversation about well and septic. And I did literally forward your concerns to Allegan County Drain Commission, along with the township's engineers letter. And North Shore submitted a drawing that's in your package tonight. And that drawing actually was a result of a site visit with Scott Jones from the Allegan County Health Department, Brian Yisodike, the North Shore engineer, and myself on the site on February 27 at 9 o'clock this morning. Scott Jones and from the Allegan County Health Department performed soil auger test and the location of the existing drain fields and the proposed reserve areas. Scott Jones from Allegan County Health Department is actually the individual that suggested that we relocate a septic tank between cottage 1 and 2, and that we use the large drain field that's over there by cottage 4 as a single drain field. Allegan County Health Department is actually the architect of this design, and Allegan County Health Department has approved this design. And then again, because I was a little concerned about the accuracy, I realized Lenny had already told you this somewhat. Here is an email from Scott Jones at the Allegan County Health Department, stating basically what I just told you. Then the attorney prepared both the Dune Alliance letter, goes on, and it starts talking about Dugout Road. It goes on to say that the planning commission should make a condition that Dugout Road be maintained as a public road as perpetuity. The North Shores, again, respectfully would disagree. And I would suggest that this comment is actually intentionally misplaced. This is an Allegan County public road. It simply is not within the right or the proper for North Shore, or quite frankly, the Saugatuck Township to impose conditions or attempt to dictate the future of a Michigan public road. That was the last item that was on their letter. I think that concludes my response to the comments for their letter that was dated March 13, 2026. I think in summary, I would say most of their comments are just unfortunately intentionally misplaced. There were other comments that were brought on some parties tonight. And they were documented, which I think we've addressed. They were low impact, that we've addressed. Topo trees, dunes, pervious surfaces, tree survey not provided, septic, adult road. In short-term rentals, but he left. I think we pretty clearly identified that in our package there. We don't allow short-term rentals. There is a minimum allowed rental. This, that's part of the condominium documents that allows for 6 months minimum, no less. And I don't think the short-term rental allows this technically 6 months, right?
I think it says 3.
Sorry.
It says 90 days.
90 days.
Now, I would prefer 6 months personally, but I guess we're going with 90 days. So we have 90 days in there.
And you were.
You know what? You're right. It is 90 days. But I don't think 90 days either qualifies for short-term rentals. Before I jump to the stuff that I actually think is important, it was also Mr. Wallace's information. And I think I want to address it actually, since I have time. Mr. Wallace wrote you a letter, included a bunch of pictures. And I looked at them, and I thought the first page showed me the difference between leaves on the trees and leaves off the trees. Pictures of the area that was excavated all back, that all the show buried in the hill. And then he goes on and talks about trees and really seems to focus on some hemlocks and some trees that are out, by Dugout Road near the office building that we had, where it says office, but it was camp office. And he's concerned about the trees and stuff that we've taken down. And I think I've explained the trees, but the ones that he brought up in particular were a bit concerning. And I thought about this because we haven't had the CAB property for that long, but I thought, it seemed like every time I was turning around, either the fire department called me or Consumers Power or people that work for North Shores calling me saying that trees were down, the power was out. So after I saw his thing, I looked. And between fire department dispatches, text messages between myself and the person that called Consumers Power, and pictures, the trees actually fell over in the specific area that he talks about 7 times in 14 months and took out the power. And that doesn't include the trees that came down that actually didn't take the power out. But in 14 months, we had the power knocked out, which sometimes took out all of Riverside Drive and all of Dugout, because when one line goes down, it usually blows the breaker further up the road. And so, and I'd be happy to share if anybody wants to see it. 7 times in 14 months. And then I started looking at my phone because quite often people will send me the picture of the problem that caused that. And so, ironically, one of the trees that's in the next pictures on page 6 broke halfway up the tree and took the power down for the first time. So I went back to the next picture, and you couldn't really tell, but if you really zoomed in it, that tree had already been down when he took the picture. Right there, you just had to really look at it from the right angle and then really zoom in. It's actually the same tree. And then I looked at the trees that actually we took down versus the trees that have come down in storms over the last 14 months. And most of the trees that Nick is concerned about are actually in these pictures. The ironic part is most of the trees came down in the storms because they were rotten, the centers were hollow. And they came down because they were unsafe. We didn't have the insight to get to them first. And it goes, big tree that came down, literally, right exactly where his pictures are on Dugout Road. And then I thought, it's ironic that Nick doesn't know this. But Nick says in his letter that he's from Dugout Road. 3524 Dugout Road, which is actually a neighborhood of him. But Nick Wallace doesn't own real estate at Dugout Road, nor in Michigan, from what I can tell. Nick has a mother that owns real estate on Dugout Road. But this is a location that actually doesn't have heat, doesn't have plumbing, and they're not there to realize that the trees keep coming down. And that he's complaining about that takes up the power, and you wouldn't be oblivious to the power because they're not there. That's my only way I can explain why he would present that to you. And I'd be happy to share these if you guys want to look at them. Or if anybody's interested, otherwise I would like to go on to what's actually here for tonight. Anybody want them? Yeah, this one's good. So here tonight is Green Book, which is special for today. Considering St. Patty's Day. And I'm clearly gonna have the insight what to put it together. But you have a site plan application. You have condominium bylaws that have been updated. That's wording changes from multiple things that you guys have brought up, that Linnea has brought up, that your township engineer has brought up. We have double checked legal descriptions. You have a master deed to the Pine Trail Camp. You have an exhibit B to the Pine Trail Camp master deed. You have a township plan review. In fact, this is the fourth one. Well, 3.5, but that other one last month, we have count. You have 2 fire department reviews. You have a township engineer review. I have 5 of them. I think you guys have 3. You have a planning commission preliminary approval in your package. You have my developer notes that literally go through your ordinance Q&As on every part and every point. You have a landscaping plan, existing plan, a proposed plan, and you have a revegetation, robust revegetation plan. And you have a recommendation from your planner with conditions. You have recommendations from your township engineer, trying to do off the fire department to approve this project. And I'd ask that tonight that you actually approve this project for final condominium conversion approval. That's all I got. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
At this point, yes.
Sure.
Okay, it is, I guess that's all, no. Commissioners, anything that you wish to ask and or need clarification? Move forward.
I guess my question would be to Linnea, and maybe it's not fair to give it to Linnea. It might be a question to the attorney. If you look at what's cited in the attorney's letter, which is accurate, that 720 G6, dock placement shall be determined by the planning commission during the condominium review in a manner consistent with these subsections. And in a way, I think Mr. Bosgraf has kind of caught me. Catch-22 because he's not applying for it. But does that mean that if he doesn't apply for it at this point, we can't turn it down for that, but does that preclude him in the future coming back? Because our own ordinance says it's to be done now. And he's not asking for it, but that, does that mean that in the future, after he's sold these, and he's got, you know, the kayaker next to the sailboat, next to the motorboat, those are all different, and I don't know the answer to that. It would seem like if you follow the language that he cites to and the attorney for the Coastal Alliance cites to, it would seem to be the logical conclusion is that if we don't approve it now, is it precluded? And I don't know the answer to that. It would sound like it, but in light of what the state of Michigan is requiring from him, he can't do it now. So, you know, like I said, it's a conundrum that if he agrees that I'm not asking for it, and I'm not gonna ask in the future, then it's really not an issue. If it's precluded in the future, but if it is included, we have a problem.
I think the ordinance, I mean, I don't mean to interrupt Renee, but I think the ordinance clearly allows you to amend your site plan in the future. And it talks about minor amendments and major amendments. And major amendments do come back to the planning commission.
Okay.
Understanding also.
I'm just saying, but that's not what this, you know, what. I understand what that says, and it's a great, but the two are at loggerheads then. Cause what this is saying, it's supposed to be done now.
I don't agree with that. I think that's what it says, but I don't agree with that interpretation of the zoning ordinance.
Okay. That's why it may be a question for the attorney is, what he thinks what the solution would be.
And it doesn't say during, and there's, you know, during condominium review, it can be during an amendment of a condominium, during the establishment of condominium, during, you know, minor, major, and then the condition in the staff report would be that it reiterates that it would come back to planning commission. We don't have any application for docks.
Instead of being so binary, suggesting it needs a crystal ball to know how big everybody's boat's gonna be before they buy their condo. In order of doing nothing. Wouldn't it be just generally practical to identify, we're gonna have 5 docks. Large boat is 30 feet. This is roughly plus or minus 5 feet where each of those docks would go for a 30-foot boat. And when I actually sell these things to actual human beings with actual boats, we'll come back and amend those to their proper locations and lengths. Did you?
Back up.
Yes.
So I'm with you. So I thought I could actually define the need. And so there is actually a survey. It's not a public survey, but there is a survey that was put together for Eagle and the Army Corps on the state of Michigan and this region or this area that identified what is the average boat slip size, what is the average boat, what is the need. And so I had the report in hand and I was using it, it was Eagle's report, but I was using it in our permit application saying, I'm the property owner, I'm telling you what the need is. And I have your own report that tells me what the average is, and that's what I want. And it didn't, that wasn't gonna fly.
It wouldn't make sense.
No. No, I'm with you because that is the path that I went with, because I thought I'm a property owner. What happens if I have 5 boats? Tried that too. And I mean, and they don't really appreciate, you know, that you get smart and courtesy about it. They really, I mean, are trying to protect the waterways and our natural resources. So I mean, I get it. We stopped, we pulled it back, we respect their decision. And quite frankly, as I said it out loud tonight, it actually makes more sense to me. But I think Lene and Cindy hit it right on the head. You know, you can condominium you know, a conversion or whatever, that has 5 cottages, they're modifiable. You can come back and add a dock or remove a dock or whatever. All it means is I just need to visit you guys a bunch. Because we've drawn a plan, that's what we're living with. When we need to change something, I realize we have to come back.
I just have a couple of comments about landscape, since this is your fourth time. Or the third time in front of the planning commission, you picked up a lot of the changes that we've asked. But with the landscape, you're only showing replanting a single species of trees, the white, it's all white pines.
Correct.
And for 11.20E3, no one tree species can exceed 50% of the total proposed.
Right, if you look at the landscaping plan in the bottom left-hand corner, it actually identifies the count of how many deciduous trees and how many evergreens are actually on site. And then if you look at the key, it identifies the size of them in 3 different categories of each one. The trees that we are proposing are white pines for a lot of reasons. Number one, they do, you know, resist disease better than most. They grow quickly and they provide year-round, you know, shelter or some sort of sightline blockage is what we're really looking for. And it is, when you mix it with what already exists there today, it doesn't exceed the required or the allowed maximum.
What you are planting is all white pines, so that doesn't.
But I am considering that the rest of my trees that are on site are part of that formula.
163 deciduous. 163 deciduous trees currently on site.
Correct.
And then the only other comment is related to the same thing, planting of native species and required riparian buffer is encouraged. It doesn't say it's required, it says it's encouraged, 11.7E2. Especially exposed where there are exposed soils and where there are steep slopes existing.
Correct. In our soil,
Pines down there.
in our soil revegetation plan, it describes what we've done is we've stockpiled the topsoil that we've disturbed on that site with the idea this spring to redistribute it. It has the seed bank still in it from the initial native soil and sand that was there.
But it's all white pines that you put down there too.
Pardon?
It's all white pines that you planted down.
Correct, that's what we have on the plan this week.
It just doesn't look natural. They're all uniform, they're all the same.
Well, they all look like Christmas trees for a little while.
Yes, they do.
But if you look at North Shore garages, they're finally, you know, they're 3 years, 4 years old. We help them a little bit with some water and fertilizer, but once somebody puts carving them up into looking like a Christmas tree, they start looking natural. And it takes a little while, but I do agree with you. We put a lot of them down 135th. You know, it looks like a Christmas tree farm. They're there temporarily because we will be using them on the site there. But we have a big water line that runs down there to keep them, so it's a bit of a like temporary trees. Because
I disagree with what you've done with the trees.
I can appreciate that.
Is the fix just if you propose 2 other types of trees within the pine?
Sure, I
I
mean.
mean, just like a
it's
similar,
more than
similar
50%.
pine, or instead of pines, put cedar trees that we could still get the green effect. Okay, that seemed like that would be an easy change.
And then I would propose that if you've got an idea like that, from the planning commission would like to see, then we can, if your conditions have Lene added as one of the conditions. I don't object to that.
David?
That was one of my, Jake covered that one. I had, question, not that, this is just for my own edification, but so you have a shared well out there. Are there testing requirements? How does, because it's is it shared by multiple?
Correct, so the well that's there is an existing well. So the camp had type 2 well system, so it's a redundant double well system. It's approved by Eagle and overseen by Allegan County Health Department. And they had periodic testing, so a safe well. Pine Trail Camp conversion, because now it is only 5 units that are on the well. We have isolated it to 1 well. And it is no longer a type 2 well, it is a type 3 well, something that's not held up quite as high as what it was previously. So now it is not under the supervision of Eagle. Well, technically, Allegan County is under the supervision of Eagle, but it's an Allegan County matter. And so Allegan County, this is kind of an interesting story because we had this conversation last time. So Allegan County came out, looked at it, and ironically, about that same day, remember there was some new water testing criteria that came out. I think that was February 6th. Actually, it is, and I think we were talking about it that night. Nobody had seen it yet, and I think I emailed it to Daniel. I have a copy of it here today. So they have new water testing criteria that came out from Eagle that was mandated. It wasn't a phase, but it was mandated immediate testing. And it now includes nuclear isotopes and PFAS, man-made organic matter, for the most part, where before we didn't test for that stuff. So this well test, we had to have Coops come out and pull the well, because it's a 4-hour well test. So they come out with a rig. They actually had to pull the well out of the ground, which is a sealed well, which was a bit problematic and expensive. Pull it out, bring a generator over, bring a smaller pump, so that had 5 horse in it, but a pump that would pump at least 35 gallons per minute. So because it's 5 units, you define the gallon per minute that you need by beds and toilets and stuff. And it came to 28 gallons per minute. So we brought a pump out that was 35 gallons. So they did a pump test for 4 hours and they pumped water. So here's the well test. So it made no problem. Water level didn't change. They pumped for 4 hours. Plenty big well for these 5 units. So that test obviously satisfied Allegan County because it did it within the water tests were taken. So the typical test looks like this one is from Brian Newhawk locally here. They take the samples and they go through it and test it. Those results are bad. The well passed with white colors, no problem. But this was actually the first test in Allegan County that fell under the new criteria imposed by Eagle. Nobody around here to test for the items that they talked about, so they had to send them out. And they said 1 month from the time that we took the samples, we should be able to give you results. So I was bugging him a little bit, so Brian Newhall finally sent me an email. I forwarded it to Lene and forwarded to Scott Jones. He called me this morning and said, "Real? Seriously?" And then he got on the phone, called me this afternoon, and said, "Yep, you're number 1. And there's nobody around that will test for what you need to have it tested for." So obviously, new business opportunity that probably will be different down the road, but today, for a month off, what the results of that are. So
Okay,
it
so the
is
county-
unique well.
Yeah, so the county will end up requiring the ongoing testing of the well once it.
Correct.
Once.
Yeah, it's overseen by Allegan County.
And then I noticed that, there was a determination made that due to the location of the nearest water main, that there was no need to tie into that existing water main due to the 1,300 feet or whatever the number was. And so, but my only question that I ask here is that, so we don't have the results of the testing back, but you raised a point last time where I said, well, why not tie into the city water thing? And you made the point that the city now has to also, or the township, Kalamazoo Lake, Cal Lake has to test the water, and potentially that could be bad. They could have PFAS in their water.
Right.
And I never thought of that point, but it makes sense. But what if the well doesn't pass, this testing? Are there, you told me one time, and this is a different project, that you always have a backup plan.
I do. Well, you may recall, and it's like it's public knowledge, North Shore has actually donated 5 acres to the township and to Kale Lake for a well, for Kale Lakes. And then we modified it, if you remember right, during the Barnuminium project to have some wider parameters. You could actually get 2 well points on it, because what we identified at North Shore when we were goofing around with the Marina project is we drilled deeper than anybody has ever drilled here before and found there was an actual clay liner at roughly 130 feet. It was 30-some feet thick. We went through it and found a new aquifer that nobody had ever realized that was here, and found really good water. And that's what brought on with the previous township group that was here and Daryl at Kale Lakes, the need and the want of the property at North Shore. And if you recall, there was a grant or something, and you guys actually drilled a couple wells on that 5 acres, went into the full 200 feet, identified a new aquifer, but again, nobody's using as a future water source. So backup plan. This well is 73 feet deep. It's on this side of the clay liner. If it doesn't test out right, as man-made organic matter, PFAS or whatever is in that water, it's really simple. I just drill a deeper well next to it.
To use the same well, just go deep.
No, I have to put them near it,
Or,
but I just go deeper.
same, yeah,
I just go through the clay liner that we all know about.
okay. That was my question.
And that was my simple answer.
Exhaustion? Oh, I'm sorry, Dave.
No, I think we're done.
I have a question, Renee. How many docks, the number of docks you can have is calculated by shoreline footage, correct? So how many docks are possible with this shoreline?
I haven't done that calculation.
Plus you have the state tax number to be away from your neighboring.
That's- That's in addition to this primary calculation. It's the next step. But literally, it's determined by how long the shore is that tells you how many. And that's the same for this property and every other property. Something I was curious is how many docks might be out there. Just in that calculation. I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's based on the linear feet of the waterfront. And then there's setbacks between the docks too, but I haven't done that.
So I know that 200 feet gives you roughly 4 docks, an 8/6 ballpark. And then that's not changing, and then you have to be 20 feet from the property lines, average. But if anyone's envisioning 30 docks in this space, that's impossible. More like 5. Roughly. It's not even.
Frankly, I haven't done the calculations either.
It doesn't even matter how many houses you have there, it's the office square footage. Or any of them.
I agree 100%.
I think everybody covered any questions that I had. I just noticed all the letters of approval from the different agencies. And I don't have any further questions.
And I don't even, I have, everything's been answered for me as well. So at this point, I would ask the commissioners if there's anything else, a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve
Approve the condominium conversion.
approving the condominium conversion, the Pine Trail Cabins parcel 3-20-004. 003-00, and the applicant being North Shores of Southwick LLC, including the recommendations outlined in Renee's letter of 1 to 8, as well as the addition of 2 varieties of. Were they supposed to be pines or just?
Well, the white pines cannot exceed 50% of the total proposed to be planted.
Okay, and they don't that way.
And they don't, correct. They don't exceed 50%.
Well, that's all that's being planted, so.
Well, I think what Scott would agree to is that out of all the trees that are being planted, that there will be no more than 50% white pine.
Right.
And then 2 additional varieties added.
So does that mean when it's all done? It can't be more than, the white pines can't be more than 50%, is that, am I interpreting that right?
50% of what's
The
being
newly
planted.
planted trees,
Oh,
not the total existing.
thank you for that.
Newly planted trees.
Newly planted.
Okay. That's easy.
So,
Yeah,
I'm good with you.
thanks for that clarification.
so are we understanding the motion? Is approval of the condominium conversion with all the conditions outlined in the planner's document as well as the condition in regards to the trees. Do you need a second?
I think there's what you. What? It's also conditional on well, right?
Yes, sorry, it's number 6.
Second, thank you.
And I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Okay.
Aye. Do I need a voice on, opposed? Hearing none, it is passed. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. My next agenda item is special use, land use, for a mineral extraction with waste management and recycling located off of 134th and 63rd on parcel 03/260/08. Located in a industrial, light industrial district, African is running iron. So, I will start with, Lene and then we can have our representative. Lene?
Great, thank you. Sure.
Is it, I've heard twice that this referred to as mineral extraction. I understand this is not mineral extraction.
No, I'm sorry, it is not, there's no mineral extraction, it is only waste management and recycling with the request to also do the grinding, the processing of the concrete.
So zero mineral.
Thank you,
zero
no mineral and no, man-made lake. So that has all been removed. So thank you for that clarification. I provided a history of this and the planning commission has postponed this request a couple times. I think what's important is to go to the second page where we've got the outstanding items. A couple things that are still outstanding would be the methane output testing at adjacent landfill. I have not seen that report or evidence of that. I know that in the past, the township did some research on that, with respect to the methane output, and that there was identification or confirmation from some agency. I'm not sure who that was, Mr. Butler, but I know you worked on that with the Parks Board, that there was some methane gas that was continuing to output at the adjacent landfill. The applicant did provide water quality testing results. They did revise their hours of operation from 8 AM to 5 PM. They did provide, they withdrew their setback withdrew the request for the lake, man-made lake, so. We do have that letter on hand. We do not have the soil erosion and sedimentation control permit. We do not have a performance bond yet, but again, if this were to be approved, we would make that a condition of approval. They did update their site plans, but one of the plans and surveys still references a man-made lake. We did receive their environmental assessment. We did receive a traffic study that showed the quantity of trucks that are anticipated at the site. We did receive a sound study that indicated 103 decibels at the crushing site.
And that the cutting would be only 5 days a year?
5 days a year, correct. And, the speedster, the traffic study did state that there would not be, changes in the level of service at 134th, Gleason or 63rd. That a four-way stop would not be warranted at 134th and Gleason. And, we did get comments from the Allegan County Road Commission. And if this use were to be approved, they did want to see that the road itself will be swept and kept clear of any debris. So that is included in the staff report. We went through the special land use standards, so this is a light industrial area. We do allow, material recycling in this land use category in the zoning district. I think it's the crushing aspect that I've called out in this report that seems to me to provide perhaps more disturbance to the adjacent uses. We did receive several letters in opposition to this request. If the crushing is not approved, there may be more truck traffic because there could be more movement of concrete because it would not be crushed on site. It would have to be taken off site for that and perhaps brought back. When we look at adjacent uses, it's important, and others have noted that this is next to Tails and Trails, the future Saugatuck Wilds Park. There's public trails and open space adjacent to this use. There are 25-foot tall material stockpiles and regular heavy truck traffic. That can be incompatible with public uses. The light industrial that is around here is small maker spaces, offices. There's also a car restoration business that does antique and classic car restoration. So it's not a heavy industrial area in the township. We don't have public utilities over there, so we don't see big, factory scale uses. In terms of the public services and infrastructure, the road network is adequate, but these are rural 2-lane roads. The heavy truck traffic will impact the pavement condition on the roadways. So we did include a condition that those roadways be kept clean of debris and material. In terms of nuisance and impact to nuisance, impact to the adjacent properties, certainly the concrete crushing provides the most, excessive noise, dust, vibration. I know that the applicant is only seeking to do it one time per year for 5 days. Nevertheless, we do have residential uses nearby. We have recreational uses nearby. There will be particulate matter in the air because of the crushing. We do have prevailing winds from the lake that blow towards the residential uses in this area. And then in terms of environmental impact, the applicant has responded to the outstanding comments from the Allegan County Drain Commission, but they have not given final approval yet. And I guess I can continue to raise the issue about the environmental impact with the crushing operation. And then I already talked about the traffic. So I do think that there are unresolved noise impacts because of the adjacent uses. And the dust and debris, the applicant has not provided any specific mitigation solutions for any dust and debris that could be blowing either off of those stockpiles or with respect to that crushing operation. I do think that there could still be contamination issues with the runoff from these stockpiles. We do not have the methane testing report. The vibration that might occur with the crushing could be a concern with the stockpiles as well. I think there are still some underlying questions that we want answered about the 3,000 cubic yards, which is the annual capacity that the applicant has stated. We still don't know if the 3,000 cubic yards is new material or if that is inclusive of what is already on the site, because he has been operating or has deposited materials on the site already. So that was a question that still remains. The machinery and equipment, what would be kept on site, and outside of the crushing operation? Is there anything that's on site just for the daily operations of the recycling business? The road sweeping, we wanted to have more, information on that. The downward facing security lighting, we need to confirm the number, the location, and the height of those. And then, since the applicant has been operating outside of any permit, I think compliance and long-term compliance is a concern. And so I think that's something the planning commission might want to discuss with the applicant. So based on that, I feel like there's still some pending questions to be answered. I know the applicant and their engineers here. If we do move forward, there is a set of conditions that I've organized into different categories related to the use itself, the operations, how the stockpiles and dust and site is managed, and lighting, the regulatory compliance, financial assurance, inspection, enforcement, and then the continuity of the use. So when that might, I think we would want to make sure that if they transferred ownership or if they ceased operation, that the use it would be deemed terminated. So just some safeguards in there. So my staff report shows that we would recommend not approving the crushing processing and perhaps consider approval of material storage, but I think we do have several comments from adjacent owners and members of the public that speak to the concerns that they have for even the material storage aspect of the site. That's all I have.
Okay, it's to you, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm John Tempest, civil engineer with Dreesing and Associates. I'm here with Brian Timmer from Wood Iron. And I would like to just give you a quick summary and address some of the items that Renee talked about. And then Brian's also got some things that he'd like to provide as well, some additional insight, background, response to some of the questions and concerns that there have been. So when we presented a plan to you last fall, the drawing that you had in front of you still showed mineral extraction on the drawing, even though we indicated that was no longer part of the project. This plan that's now in front of you tonight completely clarified all of the issues regarding the fact that mineral extraction and pond creation are no longer part of this project in any way whatsoever. There was a comment made about the survey, and I'd like to just show you that briefly. The only reference to mineral extraction in this plan set appears right down here with this red line that was drawn on the drawing. Again, this is a survey drawing to represent existing conditions. It identifies the setback boundary for any pond excavation that might occur. It in no way implies that there is pond excavation as part of the project. So I just wanted to point that out because it's it seems incongruous to require us to revise the existing survey drawing just to remove that setback when that's not even relevant to the project. I'd also like to mention the survey was completed by Mitchell and Morse. Mitchell and Morse is no longer in operation. Their firm has been bought out by another engineering firm. So again, I don't know that it's really critical for that modification to be made, but mineral extraction on construction is no longer part of the project. So if you look at the site plan then, we do have a small area that we're excavating along the west side of the site. And that is purely for the purposes of providing a stormwater retention basin to comply with Allegheny County Drain Commissioner requirements. So the entire pond excavation mineral extraction area is completely removed from the project. We've got a basin and a forebay that will collect all the runoff from the site. We have a ditch along the west side of the entrance drive, and then we've got sheet flow either into that ditch or directly into the forebay where sediment capture will happen, and then retention and infiltration work will occur in that detention basin there on the west. So we have gone through the process submitting that to the Allegheny County Drain Commissioner's office. We do have a recommendation for approval from the Allegheny County Drain Commissioner's engineer. There was one statement in their letter. In fact, I'll just read you their conclusion. In summary, we recommend that construction plan approval be granted once item 3A is satisfactorily addressed. Item 3A was please address how the pond area will be restored so as to maintain the infiltration rate used in the design. So what we did to address that comment, and the plan in front of you have this revision made. We identify on the grading and soil erosion control plan that the bottom of the basin will be planted with dense water tolerant deep rooted grasses to maintain soil structure and promote infiltration. So that restoration, the deep rooted grasses, that dense deep rooted grass structure is what's needed to provide that infiltration. And so restoring the basin with that will provide this infiltration long term we're looking for. So the one item in Brandon Newhouse review letter related to stormwater management has been addressed. And when I mentioned, we do not have a formal approval letter from the Drain Commissioner's office at this time. I don't know if one is forthcoming or not. The Drain Commissioner's offices have taken the position that the recommendation from the engineer serves as their approval now. So I would expect that, you know, if they are going to be issuing a letter, we would expect any approval we get from you conditioned upon receiving that letter. But know that all items have been satisfactorily addressed by the reviewing engineer and according to their standards. I wanted to speak to the traffic study just briefly again, and I think Renee summarized it pretty well. There's a couple points though that I did want to make with regard to some of the comments. The 3,000 cubic yard material quantity will generate up to approximately 115 trucks per year to this site. So we're looking at, on average, less than one every 2 days. Very low volume truck traffic. Now that's going to be, you know, there are going to be days where that number is higher. There's going to be weeks at a time where there could be none. But we're estimating, and the traffic study corroborates this, that the peak hour during the peak use of this facility, we're going to see 5 trucks in and 5 trucks out during the peak hour. So that's still only one every, you know, just a matter of several minutes apart. 12 minutes, I guess it is. But they did confirm driveway site distance, speeds on the roadway are going to be well below posted speeds. The 80th percentile speed on the road after this traffic is occurring is still going to be well below posted speed limits. And so there's no impact to you know, traffic safety or the roadways or intersections within the vicinity of the project as a result of this traffic. The other key point I wanted to bring up. And I'll let, Brian step up here in a minute as well. There was a couple of references to the methane output testing and that the fact that that has not been provided. That was relevant to the mineral extraction operation, which is no longer part of the project. So, it's our belief that that requirement, that comment is no longer relevant. And then with regard to a soil erosion control plan, we would fully anticipate that any approval we get from you would be conditioned upon receiving a soil erosion and sedimentation control permit. We have provided the plan in the packet. And it is normal procedure for us to obtain that permit prior to any earth disturbance happening on the project. In fact, Brian Timmer, in the nature of his operations, he's working with the Allegheny County Health Department on numerous projects at any given time with active soil erosion control permits being inspected, being enforced on projects that he's working on. And it's in his best interest to make sure that the soil erosion control permitting is top notch on every site, every project he looks on. So we anticipate that that would be a condition here. It is not typical for us to obtain a soil erosion control permit for a project prior to receiving planning commission approval. That's not a typical order of operations for any project in any municipality. So we're expecting that we would go forward with that once we have approval from the township for a project. Then we can update that soil erosion control permit if necessary, the plan, sorry, to provide a plan that meets the county's requirements. But the plan that we have in progress, that soil erosion control plan is in there, and we anticipate that it would, meet the requirements once we go to submit that. Now, with those requirements, we're looking at runoff and sedimentation. That permit is also the regulatory mechanism for dust control. And so dust control from these stockpiles is something that's got to be demonstrated as part of that soil erosion control permit. And we would expect that, enforcement through the Allegheny County Health Department would, be part of the project as well. Anytime that there is dust control on a stockpile, whether it's on a construction site or on this facility here, Brian's got a water truck and he's gonna be out there watering those stockpiles to provide enough moisture to keep the dust, from being disturbed and blown away. We're not proposing to use any kind of chemical, agents for that. It would purely be, water to moisturize those stockpiles and keep dust control. In good shape. So make sure I don't have anything else I wanted to mention. Brian will do that.
My next Brian. Again, I sat here listening tonight, how intertwined we are with the community, and Scott's project is actually what started us to buy this piece of property and do this when we were installing the water main and widening dugout. And that's what started this whole process over a year ago when we installed the new water main down dugout. So I appreciate everybody's patience with us. My first time through a planning commission process over the last year, and we've certainly made a couple mistakes. And you want to do what's right, and for this and for the community. A couple quick questions that I had in the letter packets. I assume there's a couple negatives that were received, but also there's the positives that were also received from Roger and their neighbors. There's two classic car people. Roger does it on the left. It's everybody's GPS driver. I'm sure everybody's got it. And then the Chicago car code, Mr. Mike upright. Just to address a couple of comments and reaction history here a little bit. We did first for this property and stockpiles of material there from concrete and asphalt without permission. I didn't know we needed and got to meet, Lyle, a wonderful building inspector that you guys have, in the township, and at that point, we did stop and divide by. Somebody did not know that we needed the zoning permission to do that. And then as we got going on the dugout project, we did receive a temporary permit, to stage some material there, some dirt, some pipe. Very similar to what Scott talked about. We had some wetland disturbance that we did for the township, where we needed to take that material offsite, store it, and bring that same material back for the wetlands because of the seed mixture in it. And that's at the very end of the dugout that we can do that. Our permit was not project specific, though we kind of used it for some other things, but I believe it's 6 months, about 6 months to do that. And then at the end of that, we met with Daniel and stopped using it. For what that's worth. Going through a couple of the open items, and I do apologize, this has taken so long. Scott apparently got his done in 3 meetings, it's taken us almost a year, so I'll take the blame for that one. We did give concessions last meeting, to address some of the comments of the crushing, and tried to do it within a 5-day period. Off season for the dog park. I think if you dig into the traffic study, you'll receive, 9-10 cars or something that's very off season in the winter time portion of the season. We'd still like to continue that. I think that is a decent use of the property. The neighbors to the west have crushed 3 times this year. And you'll continue to see that, and I don't believe the township's received any noise or complaints from the west side of the dog park from that crushing operation. They are looking to do their first crushing operation of the year, I believe, here in the next 2 weeks. So they'll be crushing on the west side of the dog park as well. We ask again only for a 5-day period, much smaller operation, not open to the public. I believe John's already addressed the methane testing in there that I believe was only associated with the pond. I do have to point out that from a chemical point of view that we were proposing a pond and said no pond, and the engineers kind of made us put one back in. It's not very deep, but kind of a fancy 4-day word, and the separation side of it for the water runoff. So I found that kind of interesting. You'll see it's not very deep. It's kind of tucked in there. Rogers property is right over here. It'll be nice, and the tall grasses will grow up and will make it so that it looks beautiful. To address the SESC permit, there's some interesting things associated with that. I probably pull, I want to say 100 of these a year across 5 counties. For an operation like this, you get a yearly permit. And that is governed in Allegheny County by the health department, which is the overseer of Eagle. In this Eagle audits, then we've been through that for construction projects and sites as this. They are also the governance of the sweeping. That's part of that permit. If there's road, they call it track out is the official SESC term of that. So that is there will be an annual SESC permit that's applied for. Several hundred, that's $1,200, I believe, in Allegheny County. That'll have to be renewed on a yearly basis. They actually do, the sanitarian in this park does, I believe, monthly inspections as well, so you get some oversight from those folks. It'll be this, for folks that don't know this, but we're the selected contractor to tear out your parking lot and redo your whole lot here starting in a month. We'd love to take that material to go recycle at this facility. We will get a soil erosion permit for this project, and it'll be the same sanitarian monitoring, dust monitoring, filters out, monitoring, track out of the roadway to make sure that we're sweeping and keeping our logs. This project will be the same. So the comments on sweeping will be addressed and handled and monitored through the Allegheny County Health Department, regardless of which path we go in. So everybody's aware of how that process goes and what we get filtered under as contractors. The bond, obviously, we did agree to that. That's not a problem. I believe we're just waiting on value. And what the board felt was appropriate. And then we did have a comment in there for wind testing, I believe was part of that. The crushing operation itself, I believe we talked about last time, is governed by Eagle. And the crushers are third-party people, right, that come in. There's 2 or 3 of them that reside in Allegheny County. And they have a whole separate set of Eagle regulations, which cover dust control for them, which cover dust mitigation during the process, all that kind of fun stuff. That Eagle tightly regulates the crushing industry. To do wind testing and particle testing, you have to do it during the crushing operation, not during stockpiling, right? So it's kind of a catch-22. We can't do. Eagle has monitoring criteria for these folks that would come in and do this, just like the several other times that happened this year on the backside of the dog park. We'd asked them to fully comply with Eagle's requirements during that process. And we want to be very mindful to our neighbors, especially during that 5-day window. A couple quick items on additional items for discussion here. John already addressed the site conditions of the pond. The materials currently on site. This is kind of an interesting one. If the planning commission were to deny our crushing, we would remove the concrete and asphalt from the site. There's no reason for it to be there if we can't crush it, right? It would literally be moved to the other side of the dog park and crushed there. Seems a little bit silly to me, but I understand. So if we were to have denial of the crushing site, we would just remove the concrete and asphalt. That material is not filed. And again, that would be, we just load it up on truck over a day or 2, get rid of it. Right around the corner. And we abide by your guys' request on that. Equipment storage on site. For those folks that have been down 134th, there's a lot of equipment stored down there. At any given time, there's 4 or 5 excavators in the road right of ways. There's a bunch of tree services, all their stuff behind mobile homes and some of the businesses that are running there. We'd like to be a little neater than that. We would anticipate a track loader or an excavator that would be associated with load out of materials. So I've got to have a way to load some trucks. And then we keep the buffer that's there and then try to keep those in the back. And I think when they made some comments in there, we found acceptable. It's not leaving a bunch of junk up there. Let's not make this worse than, let's try to make the neighborhood a little better than it is. I think a couple comments that we wanted some questions on too about the future park. I believe comments were made at the last one, and maybe I wrote these down wrong, but that someone had done some methane testing and determined the trails were not going to be possible in the land. Do you know who maybe is that?
As part of the Parks Commission, we purchased some testing equipment. I went out there and determined that there is methane coming from those pipes that are that is still detectable. The equipment I had was just a basic, is it there or not? This question has been referred back to Waste Management, whose responsibility was the closing of the site. This fall will be 41 years
Since it's been closed.
Yes. So here, so what jumps out at us is that whatever decisions were made 41 years ago, and prior to that, we're still living with them. So, and Waste Management has indicated that it is going to go do some testing, but we have no idea what amount of methane is coming. So is it the amount of methane that you could throw a match at and nothing would happen? Or the type of, well, and we didn't know this because it's not terribly well fenced off. So there's nothing to stop kids on bicycles going out there, and you can imagine what would happen with some fireworks. We don't know exactly what will happen, but you know, it's not fair to you because it's not your property, but it just happens to be your neighbor where there is a flammable substance that keeps coming out of the ground after 41 years. So proving of any type of crushing, I can't see a way to do that because we don't know. And, now, the application still references,
Can you hold your question?
yeah,
Because that was just the methane.
yeah.
And is there anything else you wanna add?
I apologize. I thought it was great. Thank you, Dave, for keeping us on tape too. Equipment stored on site, we talked about access road debris would be monitored by the SESC program. I believe that Allegheny County, which John has incorporated into his plan, has the standard road drive. I think which matches kind of what the dog park did with, it's got, I believe, concrete aprons and well, concrete curb and big asphalt.
Yeah, concrete curb.
Yeah, really help the track out, right, just to pave that. Just to pave that entrance just a little bit there would, I think, be beneficial to everybody. I think that's the new driveway standard. So, yes. So the going with, I believe we talked about that last time, we proposed for the road using asphalt mix. When we improved the existing driveway, there's a driveway there with somebody living on there with a camper and some other things on this road. We put down some asphalt millings, which are, they control dust a lot better. Same reason the township used asphalt millings for dugout road. The road commission recommended that. That's the new kind of standard for dust control. It's a little better than crushed concrete. The site lighting comment, that was removed. I apologize, I did not know it's coming from the site. We don't want any, I don't think the planning commission wanted any. There isn't, I don't know if that was in the buried letter somewhere. I think it was a requirement if we do mineral extraction, it was a check mark requirement of the planning ordinance. So as that mineral extraction has been removed, all site lighting will be removed. We have a nice gate up that's been approved by the fire department. Just try to keep some folks out of there. I think the only place that's been back there this spring is I've got a lot of requests for heat to get it. That's about it. As far as the enforcement piece, you know, we'll definitely abide by what this committee recommends. We ask that we just get treated the same as everybody else down there. If we want to be good neighbors to the township, we're definitely here to stay as we keep getting more and more projects with the township and in the township and try to be a good partner for this. Yeah.
I did have one other thing I wanted to point out to the commission, and that is with regard to the sound levels specifically. So you all would have received a copy of this in your packets last fall, I believe. And that is a chart that indicates the decibel levels around the crushing machine. And the maximum value at a distance of 10 meters, which is roughly 32 feet, we're still fairly close. The maximum value for that is 83 decibels. The sound levels drop roughly 6 decibels every time you double the distance from the source. So at 32 feet, you're at 83 decibels. At 64 feet, it drops to 77 decibels. 128 feet, 71 decibels, and so on. So with that said, I wanted to clarify a couple of things because I think there are some estimates in Lene's letter that I think are misleading at best, but frankly incorrect. It mentioned sound levels would remain in the range of 75 to 85 decibels under standard attenuation calculation at a distance of 200 feet from the source, and that is not at all true. So again, maximum level at 32 feet is 83 decibels. And so at a distance of 200 feet, you're looking at something just under 70 decibels. And then at a distance of 1,000 feet, I think it mentions that, you know, at a distance approximately 1,000 feet away, levels would likely attenuate to the 63 to 73 decibel range. I'm not sure where that estimate came from. But in fact, based on that inverse square law that governs these numbers, you'd be looking at roughly 53 decibels, which is just a hair above that, you know, kind of ambient level of 45 to 50 decibels that you would have, you know, just a typical, you know, outdoor setting with wind blowing through trees and so forth. So I just wanted.
You wouldn't hear it at all?
You
Is
would
that what you're
probably
saying?
hear it, but it would be just above that ambient level. So not anything, you know. What is annoying or bothersome to someone is subjective, so I'm not gonna say that it wouldn't bother anybody, you know, that's for each person to decide. But objectively, we'd be looking at, again, less than 70 decibels at the 200-foot distance, which is the property line, because this crusher would be no closer to the property line than 200 feet in any direction. So less than 70 at the property line, and then probably in the neighborhood of 53 at the dog park. And again, as Brian mentioned, there's a crushing operation literally right next door that goes on 3 times a year with, as far as we know, no obvious complaints. So, you know, this is a smaller operation in the same part of the, you know, township in an industrially zoned area. And we're asking for the same consideration that already is occurring at another property right nearby. So just wanted to again walk through that sound level analysis with you. So if you have any questions on that.
And that's the, I think just addressing sound too, I think a larger sound thing on 134th is the wood chipper shredder at the very end. That goes on, I think almost weekly. I don't know, is there a history of complaints of noise down there? That would be the loudest thing, because I know when that's off, we can actually hear it down at our property. I've heard it. What is that? And that's on the corner of 134th and 64th, the X-Man services right there. They do all the free recycling. And then they bring in a robo shredder, and then there's another shredder next to the mobile home services as well. So our goal again would be less noisy than the current page. And it may be restricted to those couple days if that was part of the issue.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners. We're ready for our discussion, and if there's any concerns and final motion, so is there anyone should start?
Sure. My concern has been pretty consistent. It's sound and dust and there's vibration too, which is part of sound. So there's 2 different kinds. There's the crushing sound and then there's the dumping sound. So when big trucks full of material empty themselves 115 times a year, that's a pretty loud sound and it creates a lot of dust. And then there's the banging of the back door on the dump truck. I grew up in a construction family, so I'm very familiar with all that stuff. That exceeds 100 decibels too, so so we have the crushing for 45 hours a year at 100 dB. 100 meters away, that drops to 64 dB. 200 meters away, that drops to 54 dB. Just as a reference point, our dog park is, I just did some calculations on Google Earth, it's about 300 meters away from the main section of the dog park. So you'll hear it. It won't be deafening, but you'll definitely hear it for the 45 hours. It's running 1 week a year from 8 AM to 5 PM. It'll be, no one will not be able to hear it correctly. And houses are within 100 to 200 meters too. And that's 45 hours a year of listening to that. So I understand there's another crusher that runs 3 times a year. I don't know if it runs 45 hours of a week, 3 times a year. That is a much greater distance. That's where are they right there? It's tremendously far away, 900 meters from the dog park. So comparing the existing crushing operation and its effect on the dog park, and this operation and its effect on the dog park, one is 3 times further away. So we have to bear that in mind. It's gonna have an effect on decibels. I am curious to know if we've received complaints from neighbors of the other crushing operation, because those homes are within 200 meters of that crushing operation, 200 to 300. And we could poll them and ask them, what is their dust situation and their noise situation that they experience 3 times a year to get smarter about this.
And that's in our township?
Yep. Yeah, it's on 63rd Street.
You have a map?
Yeah.
Very good.
Oh, you said west.
And they're east of that crushing operation. But I just want to make it clear that that crushing operation is 3 times the distance from our dog park.
It's the one with the pond that you can see from the highway. Yep. They have the big pond with the large stockpiles. If you're driving down, is that 64th? If you come off Blue Star south on 64th.
North end of the old airport.
There's the abandoned structure with all the semi trailers in it. There's a note for it says Top Grade. That's the crushing facility. And then there's Lakeshore Tree Recycling also right there. So behind that, there's asphalt, gravel, all kinds of fun stuff. And that's the back adjacent property of the dog park.
So roughly, ballpark, we have neighbors within 100 meters. You have neighbors within 100 meters of your 45-hour-a-year crushing operation. The other operation has neighbors within 200 meters. So that's double. You're 300 meters away from our dog park. The other one's 900 meters away from our dog park. It is different. It's not one or the other. I don't think math is treating you unfairly. I think it's geometry is treating you unfairly. You're just 3 times closer to the dog park and much closer to homes than the other operations.
May I ask what you define as the home that we're close to? The Rogers Barn?
I don't know the name. I just looked on a map and I saw homes.
I think the closest resident is across. Like the woods. Like the woods.
Next to the entrance.
It's right next to the entrance. It's the other side of the dog park.
Okay.
Is the closest home, I believe. to
I
ours.
just saw a lot of roofs.
Yeah,
Within 200 meters.
The
of your place.
first one is abandoned building, where all the bulletins used to be printed up front by the roads right here.
Yeah.
Those are not, none of those are homes.
Those are, no, so this one's abandoned and should be probably condemned, that's where tree bulletins used to be printed. These are owned by Roger, Classic Car Restore Barnes, who gave us the positive letter. They are not homes as well. The one here actually just sold, we got a new neighbor, DK Industries, the dock building. And bought that, so that is DK, here's Saugatuck residents. I believe the closest home, there's 2 of them, I believe, right over on this side of the street.
Right next to the dog.
Right next to the dog park entrance. I believe, right?
So the dog park's 300 meters and
They're
these
over
are
here.
250, 300 also.
Jordan, are you talking about feet or meters?
Meters, I'm sorry, I'm being too casual. Meters, everything's in
Swing
meters.
radius.
So we're 300 meters from where your crush is going to be to the dog park. And the other one is 900. That's a pretty big difference. I don't think you're being treated unfairly. I think the distances are much greater, but I am genuinely curious about the other homes that are north of the old airport that are within 200 to 300 meters of the existing crusher operation. They're downwind from that operation and they're 200 to 300 meters away. They would be our best litmus test for open space to make a practical determination if this is that big of a problem. Sorry, it's a lot of numbers and stuff, but I was just trying to understand the impact, and I haven't even talked about trucks. Trucks brake, trucks accelerate. Those are all pretty significant noises happening every 3 days. And I mentioned the banging and the dumping and stuff like that. They're not, and we just need to be aware of it. Okay. It's not just the fact that a truck's driving down the road. It's this big truck, it's a heavy truck, braking acceleration is it will be noticed every single time by anyone living in a home near it.
Mr. Butler?
I'll just point out to the board that, the Park Commission has invested approximately $150,000 into the dog park, the new driveway and parking lot. The other thing that happened that's happened for the last 2 years, and I think it's gonna continue, is that is the one place where the middle school runs a cross-country race, and it's the only time those kids have a home meet. And so you're gonna have, you know, 2 schools, and maybe you have a total of 60 kids, and then you add parents and grandparents, and they're all coming in, and they were parking on Gleason and 134th to watch this thing, and the idea of a bunch of trucks running by them, obviously, you know, you couldn't have any crushing during that piece, and we still have the unresolved problem of the methane, and waste management is not moving quickly to give us a resolution of that. So I guess my question would be, if you didn't have the crushing, what would you be storing there? You indicated in your presentation that you wouldn't take the asphalt and concrete there.
Correct, there'd be no point.
What would you be storing?
So, as we presented in the last meeting, and I'm gonna use your project as an example here. So when we're redoing your parking lot and building, you're getting canopy, obviously the asphalt has to leave, the concrete has to leave. You're getting a bunch of regrading, so the gravel has to temporarily leave, so there'll be, you just store the gravel.
Okay.
And you guys are getting some of that back. There's some sand that we need to leave. And potentially come back as you're getting swales and the front parking lot's going away and your canopies off to the side, so. We would be looking to put some topsoil and some sand and maybe some gravel there. Some common construction materials.
All right, so you still have an option to use the property.
And you still have trucks going down the road.
You still have the trucks
I'm
running down
just
the
saying,
road.
we're just having dump trucks still going down the road,
Right.
so that we're aware of that, it's still gonna happen.
Right.
And the very important is a class A road. So it's fully designed for loads and weights and. we abide by-
I understand, it's just the most popular park that we have here is Tails and Trails, then nobody calls it except for the planner, because everybody calls it the dog park.
That's what we call it as well.
Should we just say a second with that? Is it?
Just holistically, I mean, there's a need for his services. Where would there be a better place than this? I mean, we're a few feet from 196. I'm really torn. There's a, crushing operation nearby that apparently is 3 times what he's proposing to do. I mean, I have 2 dogs that go to the dog park all the time. I'm not particularly concerned about this or the trucks. So, that's is there a better site? Not that you're shopping for, but is this NIMBYism not in my backyard?
Okay. Anything else?
That's right. Well, I have to disagree with not changing some of the verbiage on the drawings just because they're records and they'll be here at the township. So there are a few things that are removed. This for referencing. And I have a question. Washing is not the same as watering down the pile, is that correct? You're not going to be doing any washing of material.
Correct. Washing is different. So
Right, so
we wash.
that's part of what you're gonna do, but in October, that was next, you have to wash.
Correct. Washing refers to if you're doing sand. There's 2 methods to extract sand, right? It's beautiful good sand, you don't have to wash it. Other times you just put it in a wash plant and use the water to crank out the fines. Since we're not doing the extraction of the machine.
Okay. And just looking at our special land use approval standards, section 15.40 says due to impact and nuisance, approval can be denied, could be denied for crushing, because I think a lot of people might feel that it does have impact in business. And the dust and airborne particles, if you were to do crushing, contain silica, and that's quite dangerous. It can cause a lot of respiratory diseases. It's highly toxic. So I don't think crushing should be approved, given the area that it's sitting in. That's how I feel. And if you were gonna do milling or crushing, there is equipment that comes with shrouds and vacuum attachments, that would be recommended in addition to wetting material. That would help. That's my main points.
Mr. Ali?
All right. So I guess my initial thought, I mean, it is industrial property. And, I mean, in a crushing operation that lasts 4 days, 4 to 5 days a week, or 4 to 5 days for 1 year.
5 days ago.
5 days, and that was on the far end of it, because obviously they paid for the amount of time that the crusher's there. So, I mean, it could be 3 to 5 days. Out of 1 week a year, just, I mean, to me, that part of it seems minimal. I mean, the trucks coming in and dumping, I work construction, and doing that for over almost 20 years. And I get what you're going through, because it's not generally popular, from the neighbors. And, but, I mean, in my opinion, it's something that it's industrial property. So, I mean, unless, there's reasons that, exist that maybe health and safety, or you're not following certain ordinances or what, to me, it's like, well, you almost have to approve it. But I guess my biggest concerns with the whole thing is really the erosion. I know you're getting a soil erosion permit, but I also know that the soil erosion is one of the first things that gets neglected. So you put it in, and a month later, the silt fence will be falling down, and and it's just not something that's gone out and maintained. And I know you suggested that the county maybe comes out once a month and looks at it, but I'd be kind of surprised if they really do that. I also have concerns about the wind erosion. And especially, I know there's, Pool is over there, but the other guy, Mike Wittes is over there. He's also got a classic car operation over there. And regardless of the classic car operation or not, but you still get the wind that comes in, and that it picks that up. And I know you say you're gonna be watering it to keep the erosion down, but that's not gonna happen. You're not gonna have that water truck out there every day. It's only gonna be when was that when you were actually doing the crushing operation, or was that when you were going to do like hauling the material?
Great question. I'll address both those. And just so everybody understands, when you do one of these plots and you put this in, you get your soil erosion permit, they're gonna make you put silt fence around it. And especially when we do the drive, and that has to stay in place until the permanent CC measures growth, so until we get grass growth. Sometimes they'll make you put the straw blanket in. You guys have all seen the straw blanket in, and that's really just to encourage grass growth. Once the grass growth is there, you can pull your silt fence out. So hopefully that's an easier way to maintain it. And usually you just have to maintain it. So the normal procedures there. For practical purposes, as we were talking about, I mean, agreed, we'll crush off season, whatever makes the most sense, right? So we're not impacting the running events that you want us to do in December or January, or fine with that. We give the township notice to make sure that we're minimally impactful to neighbors. The crusher is required to go wet during crushing, right? there, as you talked about there, very strict legal or regulations around silica, both for the employees there that you have to abide by and dust control measures. I anticipate the material being moved up pretty quickly. This is not that material. You know, if you were to, we were to crush and use the yardages that we suggested, maybe your parking lot's gonna take more. Right, so this is not gonna be there year round. This is not gonna be a dust pile. The critical spots is like when you're moving the piles on a dry day, it could make some dust. So we want to have a water rag in there, make sure we spray it down before we start scooping. You know, Mike does have a really nice building. You did the math, how far Mike is away, he's kind of over, he used to be RAL Electric, which is now BK. And then I think Mike's is right next, Gleason Road, right at the curve of the pond. This pond's kind of like, we don't want any damage down there and that. And anticipating that we would probably be moving material in the spring in construction season, right? So it'll be the spring or the summer. Spring's gonna be a little wetter. Probably don't have to wet the pile, even in the summer, when things dry out just a little bit, to wet the pile, make sure that it happens. We're controlling the dust just a little bit.
Then what if you do not haul that material onto your site, and you said you would haul it to, I assume, the next closest crushing operation, which would be Top Grade, correct?
Yes.
And, but obviously the benefit to you doing it on your property is you're not paying Top Grade to crush it.
Correct.
That's the,
And it's a private supply, so as crushers go, or we have a little baby crusher coming in, right? In Top Grades is huge, mass conveyors. You can see it from the highway. It's a huge operation. They run out of material. There's a huge shortage in this area of material. That's why we're not open to the public. We're not selling. We're going to use this ourselves. A great example of that is when we did Dugout Road. They used crushed asphalt. So they have a crushed asphalt pile there. Dugout Road took 25,000 tons of material. We bought their entire pile, plus they had to bring in more. And that was just for one small project. Then Saugatuck Township Fire Department wanted to replace their parking lot with millings. Well, there are none here. There's no one. Crushed asphalt, crushed millings, they run out very, very quickly. That's why they have to crush so many times a year. It's because there's just a shortage in the area of these materials that are becoming more popular for dust controls, and they're a little more environmentally friendly than concrete and paving everything.
okay, thank you. So that's one of my concerns is that it's less the soil erosion, more the wind erosion. With everything even offsite, and that causes some issues. And then I suppose I do have some concerns when I think about it, as far as the point that was made regarding the cross-country teams running there, and I'm trying to understand how that, I can't, where do they run exactly?
They run right in the dog park, 2 loops.
So they're in the dog park.
Yeah, they're within the dog park, but I mean, that's just like right across the street.
Okay.
The parents park on 134th and Gleason, and the race is within the dog park.
And there's not enough parking in there.
Not for that pile of people who come in, it's a sight to see.
We would concede to not operate during the time of the cross country. I don't want people out there. They park, I have seen it once, they park all the way in the turnaround, and they park all the way down both sides. Rather, if a condition of this is to not operate while the cross country meets going forward, totally.
Cause I could see that being
You can
a
barely
safety
get
concern.
you can barely get a pickup drive on. So. If that's all set, I'll see.
I think that was my only other comment. Yes.
Well, I'm kind of thinking more along the lines of Mr. McFadden. It's an industrial zone. It's developed for industry. It's a needed product. And there is an existing facility right in the nearby the property. And it's a much smaller operation. So that's kind of the way I'm leaning right now.
And I would tend to lean towards that grant, with the concern is, as Ms. Brown talked about in regards to the crushing and the dust that occurs and any of the dust that happens, realizing it is an industrial, and there are a lot of activity along 64, you know, tree, businesses and so forth, but certainly the dust associated with the crushing, probably is my greatest concern.
Is the crushing weekdays only, not weekends?
We only said 5 days, and that includes pick up and set down.
So Monday through Friday.
And we can adjust that to be, they don't work.
Okay, that's my rule.
We have a pile of concrete and asphalt that, currently, if you, I think several of you. Crush the current piles that are there, they less than a day. So they'd have longer than, in their stuff, so. They run a electronic generator when they do it, it probably, the current piles are there and tons they crush for probably a day and a half. So no weekends, we try to very much minimize the noise. And if there's a way to, you get that in township or schedule that. we can do that.
Is there any other discussion about this application? Okay, so therefore, we need a motion to do whatever, and then make sure that we have those conditions, reason for under the denial, whatever we.
I'll make a motion to adopt the recommendation of staff to deny the crushing operation.
Second.
A motion to, I'm assuming we're looking at, the planners page and apparently more specific, the last page.
So yeah, staff recommendation on scope, denial of crushing operation. And we deny the crushing and processing component of it as potentially approving the material storage and staging, subject to the next 3 pages of restrictions. 4
Okay,
pages.
does everybody understand what is being talked about in regards to, are you looking on a page, are you on page 5 or
1, 2,
page
3, 4,
Yeah.
page 5,
page 5?
which is where she recommends that deny the crushing processing component of the application. But approving the material storage and staging use.
Okay, and are you looking also all the conditions or
Yeah,
you
and
page,
then, yes.
the last page?
Yes, the proposed conditions of approval, including the land use for material storage and staging only. The site plan and operational documents shall be revised to remove all references to the man-made pond, mineral extractions, then 3, 4, 5, and then the rest of that page.
Okay, Lene, so you know where he's at? Yes. Okay, does everybody understand where he's at?
Yes, but I'd be wondering if you'd be willing to accept also a condition of no truck traffic during cross-country.
Yes.
Okay, so, and Mr. Stannis, do you, agree with that amendment? Okay. Second, so the motion is to, approve for storage and, staging only, denial of the crushing and processing component. Does everybody understand what we're doing?
No,
Okay,
what if we want to approve the crushing?
then you would have to vote, this have to be voted no.
Okay.
So as you see in the motion, if you don't agree with the motion, you'd have to vote no. Then create another motion.
Okay.
I think I did that right. All right, I'm assuming we want a voice, vote on this. Okay, Mr. Stannis, Mr. McMahon, excuse me, voice vote, please, on the motion.
Oh,
roll call. Sorry.
Mr. Stanley. Approve. Mr. Butler.
Yes.
Mr. McFadden, no.
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 Oh, wait. No means you're not agreeing with the.
I agree with the motion. so
Okay, so
yes.
you were gonna say yes.
Ms. Webster was no, Ms. Brown is yes,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Say yes.
Ms. Osmond.
No.
Motion passes 4-3. So, you only have the, staging, storage and staging, approval. So I'll have you, work with Renee in regards to anything else, but make sure that we're clear with regard to what happened. Okay? Good. Okay. Okay, our bylaws, this one we know the timelines. Our bylaws say, if in fact, we can go to 3 hours, if in fact, at the 3-hour mark, which is 9 o'clock. If in fact, there's a motion from a commissioner, we would then, a discussion and then no further parts. Did you understand where we are? Want to make sure that's good. Okay. So the next item on our agenda is the consideration of the proposal planning development rezoning, the enclave, located at 6549 Old Allen Road, parcel 20/0110, 03510, containing 9.3 acres of land currently zoned C1 and R1. Okay, so.
Yes. This project deserves more than 25 minutes, if anybody should try to and want to end the meeting at 9, so I'm wondering, do we want to postpone it for tonight?
I don't.
And then we have the data center, we have correspondence, we have draft
There's a lot to
bylaws.
go through.
Well, I certainly understand that, but I don't know whether we can.
It's a question.
And not, so the recommendation would be from Commissioner Brown is not to consider this proposal and then finish up the agenda. Or anything at this point.
I just feel like we won't have enough time to go through this project.
Well, again, remember at 9 o'clock is it wouldn't be a motion to adjourn, you would finish up what we started. And then
that's
we wouldn't complete the rest of the agenda.
Oh, okay, misunderstood.
Is that, if I understand our bylaws correctly?
That's what it says.
I believe when I was reading it, there was an indication from staff that you were recommending postponement of the enclave.
Correct, I mean, they wanted to be on the agenda to present some changes that they've made to the plan from when you held the public hearing. They've updated their parallel plan. The previous version of the plan, I believe, had a different combination of units, maybe even fewer units. There's also, just to include in the record, we do have, I think, 15 letters of support, so I just would want to put that on record, but yeah, it's really just a time for the applicants been here the whole time with their engineer. It might be good to just hear from them, how they updated the parallel plan, what they're showing on their plan, like what are some of the key changes. But we don't have the engineering review, and I have not had time to give it a thorough review. So there was no action to take place tonight on that, or that we're prepared for.
So commissioners, we can certainly give them some time, 10 minutes.
I would say
Update us.
they burned at least 10 minutes if they sat through here.
Okay.
But bear in mind that you're going to probably do it all over again next month.
Would you be able to, is 10 minutes appropriate?
Yes, and the reason it is because I was last year in February when there was no heat. And we got about 10 minutes then, so this is becoming kind of consistent for us. Thank you for allowing me to speak though.
He needed to be earlier on our agenda.
Yeah, I know, and
We're rooting for that next time.
I'll if I got some information in sooner than Mr. Bosgraf did, because then maybe that would have bumped us up. I just wanted to introduce the project a little bit and give a little context to it, because I did not have the opportunity to do that in the last meeting. So purchased land out here roughly 6 years ago. Immediately made plans to move family out here. We were talking about all of that. I've done 2 projects here in town, one's Black Barn Ridge, where we live. And the other one is the Estates of Pine Glen, which is the old sand pit property that we made into a residential neighborhood. Through the process of being out here and meeting a lot of folks, including Mr. Vanderbeek here, who's actually one of the first people I met and started teaching me a little bit about land conservation. It really sparked me to start taking a different approach to things. And if you drive through Black Barn Ridge or the Estates of Pine Glen, you'll see that they're different, but there's a similar theme. You have close to 70% green space retention. You have the Estates of Pine Glen focusing more on prairie grasses and wildflower meadows. When you get to Black Barn Ridge, you see that that's more deciduous trees. I think I have close to 600 hemlocks on the property. And I've continued to load in to kind of rebuild what we had to do when we took out the trees to put the road in and so forth. There wasn't a requirement to, but I've invested over $350,000 in additional trees, shrubs, native plantings. So those 2 projects wrapped up. I then was looking for a different concept, and I had seen that the township had passed some new zoning regulations where it was a focus, part of the master plan, to create more density closer to downtown. And let the more rural character continue further out by where I live and so forth. So in conversations with the township, it came about also that there was a need to extend the sewer system to create a sewer and water viable solution for other properties that are in the area. So we set to work on coming up with a concept. Looked at several different properties. The one that we ended up choosing, this one, seemed to be the perfect fit. And we walked into it, looked at it, and looked at a few options. One of them was, contrary to some people's beliefs, you can't build on wetlands and you can't build on wetlands, but you can relocate them. I could have come in and moved all these wetlands to other properties that we own. So we own multiple large parcels throughout Saugatuck and Benville. And we could have completely changed the look of that property by doing so. But that's not the approach I wanted to take. I wanted to see how creative could we get with the site plan and keep the wetlands and as much of the native terroir as we could. And that came up with the design that you saw back in February. At that meeting, some comments were made about a few of the side yard setbacks between what we had as some larger multifamily buildings in there. And the fact that a lot of the properties that we had, a lot of the homes didn't have a setback to the wetlands. So we went back to the drawing board and revised that. So now with the new site plan, we've shifted it just slightly to the west. And it's allowed us to bring all the homes away from the wetlands except for 3. And in this process, Mr. Vanderbeek introduced me to Outdoor Discovery Center. And I wanted to talk to them about the proximity to the wetlands as well as what we could do, for the land we did have to touch, how we restore that. And they looked at the property and they noticed that there are 3 different types of native wild prairie grasses that grow there. And their feeling was that we would infill with all of that to push that into the wetlands. So you'd have the homes, then you'd have native prairie grasses, and that would fade into the wetlands. And they did not see any issue by having these 3 homes near the small section of the wetlands. And you'll see on the engineering plan, a retaining wall was put in to create separation. Now, this is a condo plan, so we are not looking to have these be common grounds for everybody. Nobody has a yard. So we plan on completely infilling, as I said, with wildflowers, prairie grasses, and make it as natural as possible. We're working with Outdoor Discovery Center as well as Riverwoods Council to make that happen. So that's kind of the context of what this plan is. And what we ended up doing was by creating these smaller footprint homes, they're only 26 feet by 28 feet. They're taking advantage of your lower, square footage requirement that you put in place a couple of years ago. We were able to attach some of them as duplexes, keep some of them as detached single families, some with garages, some without garages, all of them a no-step design. I really believe this community is going to be something that allows residents to move into, live full-time. It's more likely going to probably be an older population that moves into this development, which is why we made all the homes no-step design. And we have offered the option for people to convert garages into first floor masters. All maintenance free, standing seam, other mixed materials, no LP, no paintwork, no vinyl siding. So we're really trying to push a narrative with the product of maintenance free, full-time living, no STRs, and try and preserve as much of the green space as possible. And I think the last calculation is close to 55%, 50+% green space retention from the project, as opposed to the township's minimum of 25%. So we tried to be cognizant of that. We have also acquired the parcel of land to the north of this. And depending on how the site works out and how the product goes, we'd like to introduce a denser product there that would fit in more with the township's new direction toward the Hamlet district. And that might be more multifamily homes at a lower price point. But that's. So that is the context. I appreciate everyone's time. Did you want to say anything in the next 4 minutes? 3 minutes?
Not really.
I'm
I'm the engineer. We've received fire department review. Everything in there looks very understandable. I think the only real major change, which is not anything, is go from a 20-foot radius on corners to 20. No big deal to do that. The sewer and water is actually, in some respects, being designed by the township engineer because they're extending it through. So when the fire chief is talking about fire flows and that type of thing, that is what's going to be the township engineer's directive. So from an end of what those flows need to be, I hope the township engineers dictate that correctly, but he's great. We're one of the things that's. This is why, one of the reasons why we want to be here tonight, and I recognize it, we've been working hard to get to where we are, and we haven't sat still, but it has taken time. Tyler, the township engineer, is trying to get the sewer and water up and built starting this summer in July. In order to have that happen, a project like this has to move to the next step. This is just PUD approval. Once we get PUD approval, then we have to move to the site and get sewer and water construction. So we're giving you a chance to look at this as much as you can, because that's what he will want to make that work. So there we go.
I have a question about context. Is this appears to be a driveway above your property? Is that the existing driveway
To that second Mars.
No, that's wet. This is wet.
That's what's but further, no, that's the second parcel.
That's the parcel.
So that's where you're saying you tend to at a later date.
Correct, there's an existing driveway there.
We already showed
It's a property that is between this one and Pizza.
Yes.
It's that stretch there.
Okay, thank you. So this driveway that you're showing cutting in, that's a brand new driveway.
This one,
Northern Drive.
that is a fire access.
Yeah, so I went to the fire department back before I went to anybody else. And Chief Jack had looked at it, and he said that you really need some extra power onto the start.
So is that legal?
It's gonna be gated, they're gonna lock.
Thank you. Now I understand the context. Thank you.
It's not paved either.
No, that part won't.
Gravel.
Okay, so at this point, again, we're getting close here. I'd ask the commissioners, or, you know, as we heard, that, do we need a motion to go postpone, or is it, can you just move?
I think you do need a motion to postpone.
I'll make the motion, go forward.
Mr. Butler? Support, Mr. Santa? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so then we'll see you back. In, yes.
Will we make them number one?
I would love to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I overheard that on the way to the restroom, but yes.
Have you given a thought for the name? Like it kind of looks like a leaning stick man, like a leaning stick man.
You know, I said that in our office locker. This new layout, yeah, it looks but creative use, so.
Okay.
I appreciate it, thank you.
All right, so, in the left, time-wise, okay, we have two things left, on our agenda, actually. One is the approval of the bylaw, and you see the new language from, attorneys, not something with questions by Mr. Butler. Is that going to be, are you happy with that language?
I'm too tired to think about it now.
Well, that was the only thing that I think we.
I think that was the only thing, I think it's resolved.
So is there anything else within the bylaws that we hadn't already discussed? Do I need a motion for this?
Yep.
Motion, I was gonna approve that with the new language and regards to conflict of interest.
I'll second.
And Mr. Island, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so I'll work with Lene and whatever we should I'll make the adjustment and take the draft off it and send it to you. Okay, so under new business, we have data center sample ordinance. We can either discuss that now or hold that to the next meeting.
Discuss what?
The data center ordinance.
We can wait.
We can wait. Okay, so we're gonna put that on the.
General question though, what happens if somebody would come to Lene with a data center?
We have a moratorium. We have a moratorium.
We have a 6 month. Okay, all right, so that'll be on next month's agenda. I believe we have all the correspondence noted. We didn't associated with all the letters that we've received. Is there any other correspondence on it?
None other than.
What we have. Okay. You can see on our agenda updates in regards to each of the projects. Any specific questions you want to ask of Lene about any of those projects? Each for Ben, Sagatuck Lodging, they're doing a lot of tree cutting. Okay. And Singapore Retreat. Is there anything in those three projects that the commissioner would have to ask specifics about? Okie dokie. One thing that we, in regards to our comment is the Hamlet discussion. How did we wish to proceed with this? Any thoughts?
The only thing, when I looked at that, I would like to kind of have the time to look at it. The one part of it I read where the hamlet would be subject to review by the planner only, it would cut the planning commission out. And I think at least initially, when we have a planner of Ms. Wells' capability, all is well. But at some point, she will move on to another position or there'll be a change. And if we didn't have a great planner at that moment, or we got caught with a weak moment, we might be unhappy with the circumstances. So I would like to, if we're going to at least look at that, I would like to retain the right for, or the requirement that it come before the planning commission.
All right, so, really the question is, do we want to have as part of a meeting, which hopefully will be light, or is this something we need to do in a, more timely manner? Or do we have a little bit of time to?
I don't think there's anything pressing right now. I do know that the township is pursuing a grant opportunity that would improve funding for an update to our community master plan. And, you know, this housing piece would be part of that. So I think in the context of the master plan process, and then that would phase into then zoning changes.
Okay.
That's when the hamlet would come into play. So I feel like we did some advanced work. That might make that, you know, section of the planning process go a little quicker, perhaps. So that hamlet might be something that's looked at in the master plan process, and that would be October. I think we might hear about the grant sooner, and then it could start later in the fall.
So those commissioners who were on the board at that time, you want to hold on to these things.
Hold on to those and the enclave stuff, please. Please.
All right, Ms. Osmond, you want to do a quick board update? Is there anything?
That was an interesting meeting. There was not a lot of action taken at that meeting. And to tell you the truth, the honest to goodness truth, I had to chair the meeting. And it's a lot harder to pay attention to the details in the meeting when you're doing the chair first of all. So, the minutes are on our website, if you want to take a look. I didn't bring them with me. We're short 2 people now. So I'm working here all the time.
Do I understand, Mr. Riley, this might be your last meeting?
That's correct.
Oh, you're the one. The
So,
vacancy.
Mr. Riley, we thank you for all your work, so, and we will have
I'll take your enclave stuff.
Yes.
Is the next part.
Well, you couldn't move that fast enough.
and I understand that, the township board is going to appoint somebody at the next meeting.
At the April meeting, that's the plan.
Okay, so we will have a new member, next month. All right, I will open the meeting. Second, public comment, same rules apply, about 3 minutes, and you know the rules. Okay, step right up there and. I will open them.
I will be quick, just a couple of things on the enclave. Well, thank you to Dave, and I saw the opening, what you guys go through on this commission is a lot, and then you have to deal with your neighbors, so with the decisions that you make, so I appreciate that, and you know, it's a lot to bear. Johnny's comments on Eagle and willy-nilly moving wetlands. I've been in construction in Michigan for 30 years. And you don't just relocate wetlands like that. It doesn't happen. That's not how it works. And there's no way. It's just, so that is an unbuildable area. There's no preservation going on there. It doesn't make financial sense. It's not even allowed. You wouldn't be able to permit that. And I don't know, does it, the encroachment on the wetlands, I just did a quick count, I think at least, or close to half of the units encroach on the setback, not 4, so I don't know. Again, how to read scale or what, but there's take the measurements, I can scale it on Bluebeam if anybody needs that reference, and when I do a formal letter, I can put some snips in there of that just to show that it's about half of the units are encroaching on the wetland setback. Then the last one, I think just character, and I'm not a gossiper, but I heard in the meeting 2 meetings ago that the developer said that they were working with people, helping people to donate the house. We're supporters of people helping people, have that for years. I know the executive director and the board chair, they've never heard of Johnny Walker or a house, so just know who you're dealing with. So, thank you.
Quick comment from John Vanderbeek at 6419 Palmetto Court. Hey, thanks, Dave. Lots of good service to the community. I just wanted to thank you guys for the bit about the gravel crushing, because I have a house over there. And I wash it off so many times a year, way more than my house over on Palmetto Court. And I think that was good that you guys were looking out for the residential houses like mine that's right next to there. So thank you for looking out for everything.
Anybody else here wish to address the commission? Is there anybody on Zoom who wishes to?
There are no hands.
Anyone wishing to address the commission on Zoom?
John.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
None?
She's a.
I will close the second public comment.
Motion to return to St. Patrick's Day.
Okey-dokey. Yes.
Through your past planning commissioner comments, brief,
I'm sorry.
wanted to ask a question. and
Go ahead.
it was
I'm sorry,
So-
we haven't adjourned yet.
So I'm glad you brought up your comment about wetlands. I was shocked to hear that it's possible to move wetlands from here to some other place, 100 feet away, a mile away, 10 miles away. Is that fiction?
You can.
You
can.
It's not that easy.
It may not be easy, but you can do it. Yep.
Okay, I wanted clarification on that. 'cause
Say the word.
it didn't ring true to me.
It was more prevalent in prior years of Eagle and DNR. I don't know how agreeable they would be to the.
But there's a.
There's a problem. Okay, thank you.
If I remember right, it's
Second.
the same as
Final question.
as Illinois, but just like, so you have a bank that's like the DNR or whatever, I have a bank and then you buy into that bank. Usually, and then they build a wetland out from that. You can't just take the wetland from the little piece of property and then do it on the property a mile down the road. And call it good.
Okay,
It doesn't.
so there's a process to it.
There's a process, yes.
I'm happy to hear that. Is it necessary for a planning commissioner to reside in the township to continue to be a planning commissioner?
I think I just read that in the bylaws, and I think all but one have to be electors in the township, is that right?
I had the bylaws right here.
I do not have that answer right off the bat.
Yeah.
And it's also gonna be in our, in the Michigan Planning and Enabling Act, which I haven't memorized.
Well, according to our bylaws, it says, the majority of the full membership of the planning commission shall constitute a quorum of, for the transaction of business. The planning commission shall consist of 7 members appointed by the supervisor, including boards. 1 member of the township board shall serve as a member of the planning commission. At least all but 1 member shall be qualified electors of the township.
So one of you could not reside.
Right, and so
Does
only one
everyone,
of us.
does everyone reside in the township right now?
Yeah.
Okay, we've sold our home and we will not reside in the township in 2 weeks. So
You can stay,
it appears that we're all okay.
according to this, you can stay unless the.
And our attorney reviewed these, so
Right.
I would assume
You can
that's
stay.
okay.
Thank you. That was
You
my
can
question.
stay. All right, is there anything else, anybody else have, Commissioner, I apologize for sticking with that. All right, I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, we have a,
I met your sidekick.
Mr. Butler,
Yes.
Mr. Candace, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're done. Thank you guys for joining us this evening.
Is there a report ready to give it like to your home where you get a health? We don't know yet. Under the bridge.